Microphone activated.
Hey guys, welcome. We're live right now. Welcome to episode 3 of We Are ESO podcast. You guys notice we have a new overlay. It's close to the first one, but it's touched up a bit. Looks a lot better. We also have the chat in the window. This was requested by some people so that when they rewatch the podcast on YouTube, they can see what the chatters are saying. So, few changes here to the podcast thanks to some helpful feedback from you guys and some helpful people who put this together. We're always looking forward to hearing your feedback and improving the podcast. So, let's get started. Today is going to be a very focused discussion. That's another thing that people wanted to see, because sometimes we're talking about too many things and we end up not talking enough about particular subjects. So today, it's 2 topics. One of them is going to be the main focus, which is class balance. We're going to cover all 4 classes. And then the second topic, after we're done with that, is going to be the Maelstrom Arena, just the new arena that came with the Orsinium patch. So I just want to start off by doing the regular introduction, because some people might be watching for the first time. Some people probably don't know everyone here. Hopefully you do. You can always type in !casters in the chat if you want to see all the core casters link and information. My name is Cypher. This is twitch.tv/CypherPK, youtube.com/CypherPK. You guys can find my info there. And I've been playing Elder Scrolls Online ever since the initial beta. I've been PvPing majority of the time. I focus on solo gameplay, whether it's PvE or PvE. Majority of the time it's PvP, but it's solo gameplay is what I focus on. King Richard, go ahead.
Hey guys, my name is King Richard. Most of you guys know me from YouTube and Twitch, twitch.tv/KingRichard15. I prefer small scale PvP and ESO, but I also do a little bit of PvE, and I'm known for playing the Magic Sorcerer class.
Fengrish?
I am Fengrush. I play Stamsork. Been playing since beta. You can find me on YouTube as well at Fengrush. Same as my name here.
Lefty?
What's up, guys? Lefty Lucy. Been playing since beta as well. Primarily focused on PvP, mostly small scale. You can find me on YouTube as well, LeftyLucy_PvP. Same / for Twitch. And I primarily focus on the DK, Dragonknight, and also Werewolf.
And today we're also bringing with us Jules. She was here on the last podcast, but we're bringing her again because, first of all, she was cut off a bit too much, primarily by me, and then we didn't really get into the Dragonknight discussion, which is why we brought her last time. So today we're going to start off with class balance, all 4 classes. So what we're going to do first is actually, I'm going to have everyone in the podcast list off the top classes that they think, like top of the food chain to the bottom. You can leave things out that you haven't played just from your experience and what you do. Forget if you don't play group, don't comment on it from a group perspective. If you only play solo, comment it from a solo perspective. Small group perspective. In your opinion, when it comes to the classes, and when you say it out, I want you to say, okay, Stamina and I played Magicka. Like, specify it just a little bit. What would you say is your top 3? Let's just go with the top 3 because it can get a little too complicated. Start with Lefty and we'll work our way back over here. What do you say for what you do?
So top 3 for what I do, I do solo PvP. Well, I do small group PvP, but that kind of includes. So the performance of the classes of my top 3 is about the same in small group as well as solo. Man, top 1. It's tough for me. So you got your Nightblades and your Sorks that are pretty damn close in my opinion. A lot of it depends on the player, but I think I'm gonna have to go. I think I'm gonna have to go with the Magic Sork top 1, and then I'm gonna have to go with the Stam Nightblade for number 2, and then 3. This one's tough too. I might actually put Magic Templar at number 3 right now.
Alrighty, Fengrish.
From like a 1v1 perspective, I'd say I think Stam Nightblade, with good CP and everything, they really scale very well. Probably not for group play though. I they're one of the weaker ones I find for group play. Not that they're bad, but they just don't synergize as well as some others would, like a Templar. But number 2 overall, Magic-Sorc, and it's right there with Nightblade. I think Magic-Sorc's stronger in some aspects than Nightblade for sure, from a survival aspect. And 3 is pretty tough. Those two, I think, are much higher above the rest. I really like Stam DK for number 3 in group play. I don't think it's like the strongest. I think it's very good all around. I'm not really sure number 3. Stam Sorc's really good too, but man, it's all I play, so I know its strengths.
Alrighty, King Richard.
I'd probably say it's a tight tie for my number 1 with Sorcerer, Magic Sorcerer, and Stamina Nightblade. Both of them, they're basically the same thing, like high burst DPS, really good survivability and mobility. So I can't really pick one over the other, but I have played both of them, and depending on the situation, they can be really, really OP depending on the situation. Sometimes Nightblade comes out on top, sometimes Sorcerer comes out on top. And then for my number 3, I would probably say a Stamina DK. And I would then, from what I do is basically small scale PvP, mainly solo PvP. I would say Stam DK is number 3, and Templar would be tied with like Stam Sorc for number 4.
Alrighty. For my top 3, I primarily do just solo PvP. And I'm not going to talk about 1v1, because 1v1 is a little different. Sometimes you'll have certain setups that, beat other setups because of just counters and stuff like that. But just from a solo PvP perspective, going out into open world as a solo player, I put... I know Stam Nightblade and Magic-Sorc probably on the top of most people's list. So I'm not gonna put them together. Like, I'm not gonna tie them up for first, but I'm gonna say that Stam Nightblade is just an inch above the Magic-Sorc from what I do and just how I play. So Stam Nightblade would be first, Magic-Sorc right after, and then a small drop into Stam DK, and then majority of the other classes that fall after Stam DK are either really, really close, or there's a big drop, like, for example, Magic DK. That's where the big drop happens. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about all 4 classes. I know we don't necessarily have very good Templar representation today, but it's something we're going to work on. Probably bring some Templar players, some experienced Templar players to talk about the Templar class a little better. But what we're going to do first is we'll start off with the DK. It's a hot topic right now on the forums, especially regarding the Magic DK. And that's why, there's a forum post by Jules that lists out basically everything regarding the class, and that's why we brought her here, so she can discuss the situation in the DK class. So, Jules, I'm gonna let you take lead on this one, and just give me the basic rundown of what is wrong with the Dragonknight class, what your opinions on the Dragonknight class from a mana or stamina perspective. Go ahead. You're free to. You have the floor to yourself.
Okay. I think. Well, first, I guess for the top 3 that I think, I actually think that Magic-Sorc is a little bit higher than Stam Nightblade. Just in my opinion, I think their ability to tank with Hardened Ward, their mobility with Streak, and their high damage just puts them a little bit higher, just because Stam Nightblade can't tank as much damage. However, I think they can output a lot more damage, so I don't know, I guess like what you guys all said, they're all pretty close. And then I really like Magic and Nightblade for number 3, because I think its damage is pretty comparable to Stamina Nightblade. It's a little bit lower, but it has the ability to have like much better heals, and their DPS heals them. So, as far as DK, I don't know, like really where to start.
How about this? How about for every class we can actually just go through every single ability and passive and just kind of point out the ones that either need some rework done or are underperforming, overperforming, whatever the case is. I have a skill calculator open right now, so I'll guide us through the skills and passives, and everyone can talk a little bit about them. So, Ardent Flame skill line, that's the first skill line. The Dragonknight standard, that was actually a very popular ability used by a lot of Dragon Knights back in the day, and right now I rarely do see standards out there. So let's start off with the Dragon Knight standard. Jules, go ahead.
So Dragonknight standard has been nerfed multiple times. Just as far as like its actual cost, it's now 250 again. The fact that it's stationary unless you use shifting standard kind of makes it difficult. And then the lack of group utility. It used to do a damage mitigation for your entire group, and now it's just for your individual self. So it just kind of is not really good in PvP anymore, other than maybe the shifting standard, which is good for the health debuff. But the thing with standard is it's just so easy to dodge roll out of. You can negate it. It's a ground effect. You can just... It's pretty easy to counter. So unless you're like stacked on top of a flag and people are just totally stuck in your standard and like snared or CC'd or whatever there, then it's just not going to be that great, other than the fact that the health debuff is pretty good.
Okay. Lefty?
I never liked standard. I thought it was always kind of shitty in PvP. I approach it from the small scale perspective. And I guess let me define small scale too, because I think I see some people in like 24-man groups, and then they'll call larger groups Zergs. I'm like, dude, you're a Zerg. So like when I say small scale, I'm talking like less than four or five people. So in that size group, I've always thought that standard was kind of shitty, even from the beginning, just because it's so easy to get out of it. It's like, oh, you stepped in a standard. Okay, let me do one dodge roll and I'm out of it. I'll just wait out here while you just play with yourself in the middle of that standard. So I always thought it was kind of useless. I've never been impressed with it. I've never used it in PvP. So just the sheer fact that all you have to do is walk right out of it and it does nothing. I don't care about that ultimate.
I think the only place that standard has like really good would be like the sewers, where it's really close corners, where like the halls are so narrow that you almost like can't get out of it.
You go forward, you go backwards. I mean, sure, you can't go side to side because you got walls right there, but every time a DK uses a standard on me, I'm just like, thanks for wasting your ultimate. Personal opinion. You asked.
Fangrush, I know you don't play the DK class, but do you have anything to comment on the standard ultimate?
Yeah, I have DKs I run with my group. As Joel said, we brought it back in the sewers.
Lefty, your mic. I mean, Lefty's camera dropped.
Oh my! All right.
No, Lefty. All right, there we go. Go ahead, Fangrush. My bad.
Sorry. So yeah, we were using it in the sewers. You know, it's hard to warrant using it over, say, Leap, which is so good. Dragon Leap is so good. Yep. And the only way we would do it really is if there was another DK that was going to leap too. And it's like, well, we could have 2 leaps, but it would really came down to the fact that once we were grinding through a lot of people, we can't burst all of them at once. We would bolt in, drop a standard, and it's very tight spaces. Negate, Nova, all those, very good down there. That's why I really like sewers PvP, and I miss it because it's gone away. But it's out in open Cyrodiil, yeah, minus groups just like ball groups clashing on a flag and dropping it. I don't really see it much, and if someone used it in open field, I would be like, thank God. Now he's not going to have leap up, so.
Richard?
I think standard is I think it's just one of those abilities that needs a slight rework, and what makes it's kind of similar to an ability like Liquid Lightning. Liquid Lightning is only good when you synergize it, and that's the same thing with standard. If you could synergize it while you run somebody out of stamina and they got to sit and take that healing debuff on top of the damage, that dot damage that it does to you, it's really good. But it never works like that because you know most people just dodge roll out of it, and you can't synergize it yourself. So it's just one of those abilities that kind of needs a buff to increase that small scale play. I don't think they really realize that a lot of people don't always run with other players, and a lot of times abilities that could be used are completely useless because they don't run with other players. And that's just what standard is to me. It's just one of those abilities that you can't really use because you're so low.
Okay. So from my opinion regarding standard, when I played DK like way back in the day, Standard of Might was my go-to ultimate just because of how the ultimate regen was working. Like you could get your standard up pretty quickly. So I would just use that for resource management, control the battlefield, stuff like that. Eventually people started learning how to get out of standard, so I was running with Leap and Standard. Leap for single target DPS mainly, and then Standard when I get overwhelmed by too many people. The problem that I see right now with Standard is the cost is just too high to warrant it as a useful ultimate over the other options you have. A lot of the times you need your resources quickly, so you want a cheap ultimate like Dragon Leap. On top of that, Dragon Leap just seems to be a little more lethal when it comes to finishing players off. And yeah, Standard is the damage over time, but it's no longer as powerful as it used to be. Back then, when it had the 50% healing reduction, you had situations where you could drop it on a healer and then basically cut off their entire healing if you had any other form of healing reduction. So I know we don't have heal stacking anymore, but that brings us to another thing, regarding almost all abilities. Ultimates that have major and minor, debuffs, they're just not as powerful because of the fact that you can get the major and minor from regular abilities. I feel like ultimates that have major and minor should have very unique major and minor buffs. Like I feel like the healing debuff from Standard shouldn't be 30%. I think it should be 50%. And I think the cost, especially with the thing is they raise the cost of Standard while also nerfing ultimate regens. So it's like a double nerf, and it costs too much for people to use it. So honestly, reducing the cost of Standard and also maybe increasing the damage and healing reduction will definitely help make it more viable in PvP. Regarding the DK class, another problem that they have is lack of a true gap closer outside of weapon abilities. And our quote-unquote gap closer is Fiery Grip. That's the chain pull. So, Jules, I'm going to let you start off with Fiery Grip. Tell me your opinion on that ability.
It's bad.
All right, next.
My turn?
No, Jules, go ahead. Explain your...
I think that the way that skill works is just totally bonkers. It's like if the person's CC'd, you get pulled to them, but if they're not, then they get pulled to you. It's like you can never really plan to go in one direction or another, so it's just not like a reliable gap closer. I mean, it could be if they would make it go one way or the other, but at this point I just don't think it is.
Lefty?
I actually strongly disagree with that in PvP. No offense, Jules. Gap closer is a gap closer. I mean, you close the gap. That's all it is. Whether they come to you or you come to them, it serves its purpose. And to me, it's like it doesn't matter if I get in their face or if they get in my face. As long as we're in each other's face, then I can start doing my melee attacks. So from that aspect, I actually really like Chain or Fiery Grip. I actually really like that skill. But the problem with it is it just straight doesn't work. Because if anyone dodge rolls or has shuffle or anything like that, and then you use Chain, then you're screwed. It casts, and then you don't go to them, and they don't go to you. And one of the things that disappoints me about that is because the way that they worded, whenever they made the change, whenever if you couldn't pull them to you, then it pulls you to them. The way that they worded it, they said, if for any reason whatsoever you can't pull the target to you, then you get pulled to them. Okay, that's not how it works, because if they dodge it, then nothing happens. So if they actually honored the way that they worded that, I think it would be a really good gap closer.
Fang Rush?
I think Chain used to be a lot cooler. It's just, I think the thing that sucks about it most now is it falls into the category of CC breaks. So if people have a movable up or they pop in a movable pot, or they just CC broke, dude's throwing out a chain, it doesn't matter. Like, it's just, So yeah, maybe he gets pulled to you, but I don't know. It's just it shouldn't be tied into the CC break category. I don't think. Uh, it would allow, because some people want to play DK like that, and they used to, and that just doesn't exist. Like more of a support type build, and they were doing things in the party, focusing, staying with the party, yanking people in. Thought that would be an aspect of the class, and it kind of was early on when Chain had a lot of freedom that it just doesn't have anymore. So,
Richard?
Yeah, I agree. Like other gap closers like ambush, crit rush, any other gap closer, invasion. Well, I can't say invasion, but any other gap closer, like the main gap closer, basically ambush and crit rush. Those abilities don't give you CC immunity when you use it. You can spam it on somebody and not give them CC immunity, which allows for you to combinate. So I can crit rush into you and then try and wreck and blow you or put a fossilize on you and CC you. But for an ability like Chains, it just literally pulls me towards you and then it gives you a 5-6 second CC immunity, and it throws off the fight. Like it makes it almost useless in PvP, because if I'm gonna waste my CC immunity on just a gap closer, I might as well not have it on my bar, because I'm not going to be able to get the kill if I'm CCing you just by closing a gap. And that's the main issue that I have with that ability. And also, they kind of like need to extend the range, and I kind of miss when you can pull people off of keeps and stuff with that ability. That was awesome. Like that was a reason to play DK. Like, yo, this dude is too close to the ledge. Okay, come down here and let me talk to you. But you can't do that anymore. So they kind of like, they took away a lot of the passion that the DK class had. Like it's just slowly becoming a poo-poo class, and extended change is one of those reasons why.
I agree with most of what you guys said. My biggest concern with Chains is, I mean, of course, I would actually like it to be able to pull people off from, the ledge of the keep. The only reason that was, changed was because, we had issues where other alliances would pull in groups of players so that it was easier to take the keep, and that's just like a little unfortunate that people like would resort to that. But it was still a part of the, the DK class that was pretty interesting, being able to pull people off keeps and stuff. Another problem that I have with using this ability is, like Richard said, is the CC immunity. You gap close, and after you gap close, you want to land your your CC so you can start doing your rotation or whatever it is. You can't CC them. You gap close and give them free CC immunity. Now I understand why there's CC immunity on the Chains, because if there wasn't, you could have like 3 DKs just pulling some guy back and forth in a triangle, and it just that wouldn't really be fun for the guy being pulled. But what I think they could do with this ability is have one morph pull you to them and the other morph pull them to you. Now, the morph that pulls you to them shouldn't give your opponent CC immunity. It should just act like a regular Magicka gap closer that you use to pull yourself to your opponent. The other morph can stay as is, pull back and forth and give the immunity. I'm sure a lot of people will probably prefer the one that doesn't give them immunity, but that's just something I think.
What it is the issue is that they got it tied into CC. Like the ability is fine. Like it's smart that, okay, if I can't pull you towards me, then I'll pull myself towards you. That's smart. But the issue is, in order for the game to recognize the next ability lineup, which would be the pull towards the player, you have to have CC immunity for that to happen, or you have to block it. And that's the issue. They just need to take the CC immunity away from the ability and say, hey, if you use this ability once on a player, you got a 5-second cooldown, and within that 5 seconds, instead of you pulling a player towards you, you pull yourself towards the player, and that would solve that issue.
Yeah. So just if they put it on a separate, CC cooldown, which is actually something they should do with not just this, but other forms of CC. That heck, maybe even roots need to have some sort of separate cooldown attached to it, but if they had the ability to make this on a separate cooldown, it would be perfect, because you wouldn't be giving free CC immunity, but you would still have some sort of immunity from this ability. Because I think this is the only ability in the game that grants CC immunity without truly
without like a knockdown or disorient or stun. Yeah.
Or stunning the. I think it is.
To play devil's advocate on the CC thing, it doesn't really bother me too much. I mean, yeah, it's really unfortunate that it's, like you said, it's the only gap closer or ability that grants CC immunity and doesn't actually do anything to the target except move them. That kind of sucks. So that kind of sucks. But the fact that it gives CC immunity doesn't break it for me, because I mean, you've got Fossilize and you've got Obsidian Shard too. You have 2 ranged CCs. You could just pop one of those and then use your gap closer. And that's exactly how I use my gap closers right now. I pop Fossilize and then I gap close in. So to me, it wouldn't really affect me. It wouldn't really matter, because I CC them and then instead of pulling them to me, it pulls me to them. So it still works just fine. The only problem, like I said, that breaks it is when they dodge roll. Because you can still gap close on anyone else with any other gap closer if they dodge roll. It just puts you in their face. It won't damage them, but it still puts you in their face. That's what breaks that ability for me.
Well, even though you use the fossilize first and then the gap closer after, the chains after, soon as you hit the fossilize with the chains, it's gonna break the fossilize. So you still end up giving them CC immunity. I think the argument is that it's not working like other good gap closers, like ambush. I can ambush into you and fear you. That's a 5-second CC. Or I can use fossilize and then wreck and blow. Or I can crit rush into you and then wreck and blow. Like, that's the issue, is that you can't gap close in and then follow up with the CC, no matter how you put it. It's just not possible. And then on top of that, there's stuff like the dodge roll, because I mean, I think you should be able to dodge roll the damage, but not the actual pull-in effect, because you can dodge roll crit rush and everything, but if you're in the process of crit rushing, you'll still go to the target. So it's a lot of stuff with that ability that needs to be worked on.
All right. So we're not gonna go over every single ability, but we're gonna go over the ones that I think need to be discussed. Lava Whip, that's the second one. A lot of people are asking for a Stamina Whip, just for the Stamina DK. Now, I've been playing Stam DK. I played a 1-hand and shield and 2H Stam DK, and also played a 2H and bow Stam DK. And I found that you're kind of either forced into running Ransack or Wrecking Blow for instant DPS. And you don't really have like a class spammable skill for DPS purposes. So a lot of Stam DKs are asking for a Stam Whip, and it's actually something that's I'm kind of surprised as to why we don't have a Stamina Whip, because all the abilities that were I'm talking before, when everything was Magicka based, there were certain abilities that were scaling off of armor. Abilities like Surprise Attack, Ambush, Biting Jabs, Lava Whip, they would scale off of your opponent's armor, not spell resist. Even though they costed Magicka, you used armor to mitigate it. Now, all those abilities got a Stamina Morph, except Lava Whip. I don't know the reasoning behind it. I know DK's got Searing Strike and Fiery Breath as Stamina Morphs, but those are damage over time, and we already know, like, damage over time, sometimes it's just not as reliable because there's so many ways to counter it. Cloak, Purge, Cleanse, while just instant DPS is just a little more... It's a little more solid when it comes to, building your Stamina DK. So honestly, I think Stamina DKs need to have a Stamina Whip, because you're forcing a lot of Stam DKs into either running a 1-hand shield or 2H for their primary DPS, and then you're running just, Stamina weapon class abilities for your main DPS. So, Jules, I know you're focusing on the Magicka DK aspect, but have you played Stam DK? What do you think about it when it comes to the whip?
I've only played Stam DK a little bit, but that was the main drawback for me. Just the lack of a single target Stam ability. I don't like Wrecking Blow, and Ransack just seems weird, and I'd want to probably run like dual wield and 2-hander, for rally and for Flying Blade or whatever. But yeah, I really think it's necessary, and I think probably Molten Whip should be what it is, because Flame Lash is just too good in PvP for, by good I mean just not really good, but I think it should be Molten Whip, because that's the one that PvE DKs use, and it grants like 151 damage or something, extra spell damage or something to the abilities if it's slotted on the bar, something like that. I don't know the exact tooltip, but I think that could go in PvE. DKs could very easily use Flame Lash, and they wouldn't see too much of a decrease in DPS, so I don't think it would affect things too much. I think it's kind of just a no-brainer.
Lefty?
Yeah, the problem with the DK, the Stam DK specifically, is, and we're talking about balance here. So it's when you look at the Stam Nightblade, they've got concealed weapon and surprise attack. They have their options for stamina, for magicka, for instant cast DPS abilities. You've got Templars, and they've got jabs, stamina, and magicka morphs. And then you've got the Sorks and you got the DKs that don't have the instant cast DPS stamina morphs. So it only makes sense to give that to them. It doesn't make sense to force them to look outside of their class abilities when the other two classes can look inside of their class abilities. So you want to Stam Frag for Sorks, or a Stam Curse maybe. I'd prefer Stam Frag, and then you want to Stam Whip for DKs. It just only makes sense.
It doesn't though.
Well, come at me then.
Because it doesn't, because you gotta understand, like, for instance, DKs, they're forced to go outside of their class line to get instacast DPS, right? Which is fine. As a Nightblade, as a sorcerer, you're forced to go out of your class to get instacast healing, which is through the Resto staff. Only class that has healing built in is a Templar. So if you start giving all the classes what the other classes do uniquely. Yeah, exactly. DKs also have self-healing, and that's something that Nightblades and Sorcerers don't have built into their class. So if you start taking, stuff that's unique to one class and you give it to another class, you kind of take away the uniqueness and skill of PvP and ESO. So I'm kind of against the Stam Whip, because then you'll get DKs with an ability that hits just as hard as surprise attack, on top of the fact that they still have self-healing, they still have a stamina dot, they still have tankiness and passives that restore their resources. So every class has some type of uniqueness, and I don't want the game to go in that direction where they start giving every class, okay, this class has a stamina morph, so let's give it to this class. I don't think that should be a thing in ESO.
So, Fangrush, I'm gonna let you talk, and then I'm gonna give my opinion regarding the back and forth with Lefty and Richard. Fangrush, I know you play Stam Sork, which also kind of suffers from the same situation. They don't have an instant Stam DPS, but from a Stam DK, Stam Sork, you could go ahead.
Yeah, I agree a lot with what Richard just said, actually, because people tag me a lot on the forums about Stam Sork bounce. They say, where's our Stam Frags? And that'd be pretty strong. I don't even know how it would work, because a big strength of frags that it procs when you use other skills. How would my Stam frags proc when I'm wrecking blowing people? And if it did, that'd be pretty wild if I could wrecking blow someone, pop them with a frag, and execute them. I mean, you could cause some trouble there. But for me, I agree a bit with King. What I'd like to see is just more Stam options for people that don't have them. On my Sork, I have 15 Sork skills. I have 4 of them skilled. I use 3 of them. The 4th one I throw in for PvE. I mean, that's awful. I don't even skill the other ones because they're all shit. They're not good for me. And that's just how little Stam Sork has at its disposal. So that's just a problem they need to address. They just need to go through it and say, here's a bunch of skills that this guy would never use. Maybe we can make them useful. I mean, they even just put in a set for Stam Sorks to use some pet armor.
Well, that's for Stam Nightblades, but
oh, okay. Then you know what? Then they don't even care about Stam. So, but it's just, yeah. What I'd like to see is just more options. Like again, just agreeing with what King said. Like, you don't have to give just a straight insta damage to everyone in their class line. Like, that's where Stam Templars are good. When I group with ESO, he's always gonna do more quick DPS than I can, because he can jab and he has Burning Light to synergize with it. That's what his class has from a stamina perspective. Now, I'm fine not having something like that synergizes with my passives for more damage, but I'd like to have some stamina option somewhere else in there, because hybrid builds just don't work, and the fact that they cap CP just crushes hybrid builds that much more. Hybrids won't be here till 2017 or something, when they raise the CP ceiling, and even then the game just doesn't function too well when it comes to hybrids. you have hybrid utility at best. That's it. So there you go. That's my.
I'll give my opinion on the topic. I kind of disagree with. I mainly agree with Lefty's point regarding the stamina build, because the way I see it is, let's look at Magicka builds for a second. Every Magicka build, so we got Templars got the jabs, Nightblade's got concealed, DK's got the lava whip, and sorcerers have their frags. Just bread and butter DPS. So even from the Magicka builds, the sorcerers and Nightblades have to go out of their class skill line to get reliable healing. But they don't have to go out of their class skill line to get reliable, instant DPS. But then when you go to the stamina spectrum, you got a situation where some classes have to go out of their class skill line to get healing and DPS. So let's look at the Stam DK. Stam DKs are usually running 2 or 3 DK abilities. So going to what Fengler said, adding more stamina options will help. But at the end of the day, people want stamina options that they can actually use in their PvP setup efficiently. So we have Searing Strike and Fiery Breath, but outside of they're both dots, so you'll be running 2 separate set of dots, and dots can easily be countered. Just I feel like when it comes to the DK class, a stamina whip is the answer for them. For sorcerers, I don't know how a stam frag will work. A sorcerer probably should have a little more options when it comes to stamina utility in their other abilities. But just regarding the DK class in particular, because that's what we're talking about right now, there's a lot of DKs that are running 1 or 2 DK abilities, and usually one of them is the ultimate, and it's Ferocious Leap or Dragon Leap. So I don't know about Stam Frag. I really haven't played Stamina Sorcerer yet to comment on that. But I've played Stam DK long enough, and I know that they are very limited when it comes to their source of DPS because they don't have a Stamina Whip. And they have to go out of their class skill line for heals and for DPS, because Green Dragon Blood, we'll get to that in a second, but Green Dragon Blood is just out of the picture nowadays. So there's one more ability that we're going to talk about from Ardent Flame before we go to the next skill line. And I want to try to get through these quick. We have 4 classes to cover, but that's all we're talking about this podcast outside of the arena. So Inferno. Now, I have not played with Inferno, but a lot of DKs that I've played with or have talked about Inferno from both a PvE and PvP perspective have told me that Mage Light is just the better option. So, Jules, I'm going to let you start off with this.
In my opinion, both of the morphs of Inferno are just pretty useless for a Magicka TK. You have one that gives, I think, weapon crit, and then the other one has this insane, gives back 151 Magicka if you kill a person with that little flame ball.
Oh my god.
Which is the likelihood of that happening is pretty low. And then you think even if that does happen, you get back 151 Magicka. It's what is that going to do for me in a 30 to 40k Magicka pool? That's just so... It just looks like it must be a typo or something. It's insane to me. Other than that, in PvE I run both. So I run Mage Light for the 7% extra Magicka, 5% of the skill, 2% from the passives, and then Inferno for the dot. I don't really PvE anymore, so I don't know if that's what people are doing or whatever. But yeah, so I think that one of those morphs should definitely just be a little bit better. If it returned more Magicka, then it might be viable. But in PvP, I don't see how either would really be viable when toggles take up 2 slots. They're just too valuable to have to give up for something that just gives me back so little.
Lefty?
Yeah, I just had to Google what this skill is. I was like, what the hell is that? And then I look at it and I'm like, oh, that's that terrible one that I never even messed with. Yeah, that skill's garbage.
Yeah.
Approaching it from especially from a PvP perspective, Jules hit my point right at the end right there. The toggles really put you at a disadvantage. With the limited number of abilities that we have, if you want to really make use of a toggle, Bound Armor on a Sorc or Inferno on a DK, those 2 abilities, I like Bound Armor a lot more than I like Inferno, but I dislike both of them because I swap weapons like crazy when I PvP. because I view my second bar as an extension of my first bar, not a completely different entity. So my combos are like they require me to weapon swap in the middle of my combat. So I can't use Inferno, and just looking at it, like it's just like even if I could use it, I wouldn't. It just I don't know what the answer is for that skill. I think probably delete it and give us something else because it's poo poo.
I agree with that. I think Inferno needs to either be deleted or completely reworked. And on top of that, toggle abilities just people find it really hard to find a place for toggle abilities because you have to slot 2 of your abilities. You have to give up 2 of your abilities for 1 toggle. Siphoning Strikes had that issue, and they gave one of the morphs of Siphoning Strikes, I think, or both of them are just like a self buff. Honestly, Inferno should be reworked into a self buff. Fangrush, I'll let you talk about it.
I don't know about this skill. I have no comment.
You don't know about it because no one uses
That's fine.
it.
I mean, I didn't. I actually didn't even know the morph that Jules described. I'm looking at it right now, and that is just the most terrible thing I've ever seen. You have to kill someone with your dot that happens every few seconds, and it hits so weak, and you have to kill them, and then you get like some magic, like 150 magicka back.
It's useless. It's a 100% useless ability, and it's a lot of them in the game. And those abilities are the abilities that need to be taken out, and then they can like start to kind of meet on a middle ground with the players. Like people are asking for a Stam Whip, and here you got this ability to slide. Hey, give them something. Like take that ability out the game and give us something that's useful, because that ability is not useful. Now, Bound Armor. I know you said something about Bound Armor, Lefty, but Bound Armor is actually one of my favorite toggle abilities. It's really good. It gives maximum stamina and it increases your heavy damage by 11%. So it's actually really good. And then on top of that, the only reason I like it on the Stamina Sork is because you can use your overload bar to get those 2 skill slots back. So Bound Armor is another story, and I think that's a good ability. But Inferno, take it out the game, give DKs something more useful, because it's useless.
Now, one question before we continue the next ability really quick. Regarding toggleable abilities, yes or no? Just simply yes or no. Do you think toggleable abilities should stay toggled as long as they're toggled on 1 bar, regardless of weapon swap?
I think what should happen with toggle abilities, they should probably try to do something to keep it a toggle ability, but only have it take up 1 bar. Like maybe they can say, okay, hey, you activate this ability, and then when you're not on that bar, you have 10 seconds to swap back to the bar before the ability wears off. I think that would be more of a legitimate option, because I don't really like what they did with siphoning attacks. I kind of miss it being a toggle and being on 100% of the time. Now you really got to focus on keeping that up as a buff on top of your other buffs.
I really like that idea that Rich just said. Another option that DKs are probably looking for is like Sorks have their power rush, or what the hell is it called? Not crit rush. Crit surge. Power surge. Something that can give you major sorcery or major brutality, any kind of like self buff. That could be an option for that skill, since it's so
I would
useless.
love to see major sorcery attached to that skill and
That'd
make it a self buff. Major sorcery self buff. I would like to see that. But just like guys, this yes or no on do you think toggleable abilities should stay toggled? And when I say stays toggled, the effect stays. The effect stays on both bars. Lefty, yes or no?
I don't know. It's tough. I lean more towards yes than no. But I'm really not sure.
Fangrush?
I'm not sure. I don't think you could solution it just based on that. It would make everybody running like 2 toggles pretty much.
Right.
On every class and every build.
Okay.
The issue with them being on only 1 bar is that they're free to toggle on. So
yeah,
it would be advantageous to have like 2 on each bar, and then or 1 on each bar, and then they're not costing you anything, but they're giving you something. So it's kind of like an issue in that way.
It should have like a 5-second timer when you swap bars. And then it'll open up more build choices. Because say you got, Inner Light, and then you want to run Inner Light and Bound armaments. You can like time how much you swap weapons and say, hey, I swap weapons basically every 5 seconds. I can put Inner Light on my main bar and then put Bound Armor on my off bar, and I'll keep both of these buffs up just by swapping weapons. I think that'd be a better option than to just have toggles on 100% of the time. But I think that's kind of like meeting in the middle.
Okay, so regarding that, the main issue I have regarding toggles is if you run a toggle, you're basically forced to run it on both bars because of the fact that it untoggles when you swap back. So let's say you have a DPS bar. Let's say on a Magic DK I have a DPS bar. I want to put Mage Light on that bar. But on my back bar, I don't really need the Mage Light crit. I just have some buffs on my back bar. The problem is you have to run on both bars because in the middle of combat, when you swap from your main bar to your back bar and then you swap back, the Mage Light will be deactivated and you have to activate it, and it's just too slow in PvP. I think honestly, not having it active on both bars, but if you toggle it on one bar, it stays toggled, and once you switch back to that bar, you get the effect as long as it's still on your bar.
That would work.
I think that's the middle ground that.
I think what we get into with that your suggestion, Cypher, is the imbalance between PvP and PvE. Because honestly, I think the way toggles work right now is perfectly fine for PvE. It seems like a purely PvP thing, and a lot of times we tend to ignore PvE here, but you really, I mean, you can't exactly do that with everything in this game. So I don't know if the making toggles always work, even if it's on one bar, would fix it, because I think it's just, I don't know.
It's
I don't
like
know, that one's tough. That one's tough.
the cost of toggles is the fact that you have to run it on 2 bars because
Right,
they don't cost
right.
anything. So like, if you take away the fact that they have to be retoggled, then like
If toggles are more seamless, you may have options where you could run on one bar, but toggles are awful.
yeah, you have to like.
If you turn
go through the
something
whole
on,
animation.
it's like you get disabled. It's such bullshit.
Yeah, I agree with Lefty on that, because I was totally just thinking about PvP. And in PvE, I run Inner Light on both of my bars, and I do just fine.
Yeah.
It gives me the max magic that I get the spell crit, and it just overall boosts my build. And I don't have an issue with I don't have an issue with running it on both bars. But in PvP, I wouldn't even think about running Inner Light on any of my bars. So yeah, it's just a PvE PvP thing, and we got to think about both sides of the fence.
All right, next skill line, Draconic Power. Okay, there's I think 2 or 3 abilities we're going to talk about here. The first one, this is the main one, Dragon Blood. Dragon Blood used to be DK's main source of healing. It actually was regarded as a very overpowered ability early on in the game. Where did it all go wrong? Jules, go ahead.
I'm not really sure, to be honest with you. Something between last patch and this patch. I don't know if the battle spirit buff is applying in a different place, or it's applying twice, or what's happening with Green Dragon's Blood, but it's just so terrible. It's like you can be half health, and even with an Igneous up, you're getting like 2-3k heals, and it's like you can't do anything with that. Even if you have like on my DK, I think I have like 80 or something like that into Blast and Quick Recovery, and you can try everything that you want, but if you're a Magic DK, you're running in a Resto, or you're gonna get killed, and you're gonna run Blessings of Restoration, and that's just that's what every DK that I know is doing. I only know one DK who runs Dragon's Blood still, and you're just completely dependent on Templar healers.
Oh, when you say Dragon's Blood, you mean coagulating, right?
Coagulating. I haven't used Green Dragon's Blood in months and months because it doesn't stack with the tripods. So it just doesn't.
Well, it's
make sense
any
to run
pot
that.
that
I'd
gives you
rather
stam
get the.
regen.
It's any ability that gives stam regen, because there's only minor and major buffs now. They need to separate pots. They need to separate ultimates. Even if it does give major, that stuff should stack, because it's eliminating a lot of abilities and different play styles out of the game. Like, a lot of people would say, hey, I'm gonna run this particular pot and I'm gonna get my recoveries from these pots, but you can't do that anymore because you already get the recoveries from a class ability, and it's just not stacking. It's really ruining PvP and PvE.
Lefty?
Yeah, I don't know what it is. Like, I used to run Stam DK for a while, and I used to use Coagulating as my heal, and it was fantastic. I would wait. I usually run the tank build, so I would wait until I'm like super low, because that was my favorite mechanic about Dragon Blood, was that it healed you more when you were when you had lower HP. So I would build to have a high HP pool, and then it would wait until I'm like super low, like once I get into execute range, and then it would pop a Dragon Blood, and it would pull me way high into HP. So I'd need like two Dragon Bloods to get to like almost full health. And then 1.7 or update 7 comes along, and I need like 14 Dragon Bloods to get from execute range to full health. So it's like something doesn't make sense with the so sure they reduced healing, but it feels like they reduced it by too much just for that ability. I don't understand.
It's because that.
Or it's like they took out the scaling when you're low on HP
No,
or something.
the
It's
issue
like
the issue is the ability itself is a percentage heal.
Yep.
Whenever you have percentages in this game, they don't stack properly. So, which is one of the reasons why they did the major and minor stuff, because they didn't want percentages to stack too much. But that's the issue. Like, you got a healing debuff that takes away 50% of your healing, and then you heal for 30%, and then the mathematics within the game is just not stacking correctly, and you're getting, like, honestly, you get like a 10% heal from Dragon Blood. Like, I'm not even lying.
16.
I think it's
16.5.
16%.
Should
Yeah.
be 16.5 if you divide 33 by 2.
You're
Is
restoring.
is that at 1 HP?
Yeah, and that's it.
So if you use it at like 80%, then you probably get like fucking
500.
sorry, you probably get like
If
garbage
they just,
for
yeah,
you
if
get
they just
nothing.
did a flat heal that would
Pardon my
scale
French.
Okay,
the way
so-
the other heals do, then it would be better.
Fangrush, do you have anything to comment regarding this ability?
Not really. I know a lot of people used to use it. It used to be very strong, and yeah, the numbers are probably screwed up, man.
Yeah.
A lot of numbers get screwed up when they patch things. There's stuff screwed up right now that probably won't be fixed till the next big patch. So
I mean, the thing is, it's a 33% heal if you're missing health. Honestly, the battle combat spirit, whatever it is that reduces your healing, should not even apply this ability, because this ability doesn't have like a set number. It's just a percentage of your health. So it should either be percentage of your health, or it should be an actual number that gets reduced by 50%. That way it doesn't get double nerfed. On top of that, another thing that made this ability a little worse over time was overall health pools are a lot smaller than they used to be, so you don't have as much health to restore. But of course, that's an option that people run with. Like, you can still run with 30k health, which was the average health pool back then. So that's just if you have low health, you don't really get as big of a heal. But the thing is, the blanket nerf, the damage blanket nerf that was applied, and the healing blanket nerf that was applied, 50% battle spirit debuff on all healing and damage, has caused some issues because certain abilities were affected more than others, like Green Dragon Blood, and then certain DPS abilities are really not affected at all in comparison to some that just don't hit that hard anymore. So Green Dragon Blood definitely needs to be reworked. Whether they make Battle Spirit not apply to it at all, that's something I would like to see, or make it into an actual solid number. But honestly, I prefer it to keep its original state, where it restores 33% of your missing health without any healing reduction applied to it. Because even without the healing reduction applied to it, people are running with 20 to 25k health pools. You're not going to get a huge heal unless you're very low health. Second thing that is wrong with this ability is the potions give you stamina regen, and you can keep up the potions for 100% of the time. If you have the passives, you can have 100% uptime on your stamina regen. So your Green Dragon Blood actually doesn't benefit you at all if you're using tripods. And a majority of the PvP players do use tripods, or not even tripods, but even anything that's just going to give you stamina back with the stamina regen applied to it. So the major, what is the actual buff called?
Whatever it is that gives you stamina regen.
Yeah, major endurance. The
Endurance,
major
yeah.
endurance, it should be changed on this ability to where it's either major or minor, depending on if you have the major up already, or a minor up already, or it should just be completely different, and maybe you should restore a certain amount of a percentage of your stamina back when you cast the ability. So there's a lot of things that need to be redone with Green Dragon Blood. I was going to talk about reflective scales, but I mean, just the main thing regarding reflect is, in my opinion, let's just keep this one short. I think reflective scales is nice, but it shouldn't have a 4 projectile limit anymore. Considering
Make the seconds the limit. It's already 4 seconds long. Like, how many projectiles are you really going to be reflecting in 4 seconds? Like, if there's a lot, then That's the point of the class. It's supposed to be tanky. I think the one projectile per second thing, if you're getting mowed down by a bunch of people and they're all, sending frags and stuff your way, you should be able to reflect all of them within that 4-second period, or more than 4 at least. The other thing with that is it's totally bugged. I see all kinds of videos of people just like copping meteors and frags and whatever the whatever.
I actually like scales. I like where it's at right now a lot better than where it was before. I feel like it was way too crazy before. I disagree with you when you say that why can't I reflect all these frags? If you got like 40 sorks on you and you just throw up scales and you just throw 40 frags right back in their face, that seems ridiculous to me. I actually like scales right now.
My thing, I was always, Cypher, you know this, I was always against reflective scales, especially before they nerfed it with the 4 projectiles. I was always against it. Only reason I was against it, though, is because as a stamina sorcerer, literally my only DPS... Yeah, as a magical sorcerer. My only DPS was Crushing Shock and Crystal Fragment. And then with the occasional Curse, and Curse was never enough to kill somebody that had reflective scales up the entire fight. So that's why I was against it. But now there's a lot of abilities in the game that give you an advantage over DKs that use reflective scales. So they can bring back the 4-second infinite projectile reflect if they want to. I'm not against that anymore, just because they changed the game. Before it was a little bit ridiculous, but now, I mean, you got Nightblade running surprise attack, concealed weapon, sorcerers running magic of debt or inevitable debt. You got people running proxy debt. You got curse. You got wrecking blow. You got so many different counters to reflective scales now. They need to rebuff it, because that was one of the things that gave DKs an advantage, and it's only going to affect people that don't know what they're doing, because the animation is clear as day. Like when somebody pops reflective scales, I see it, and I'm not throwing anything until I see the animation go away. So yeah, bring that back. Bring the scales back.
I think when it used to be 4 seconds or whatever, stamina really wasn't a thing, so everybody was magic, so everyone felt the pain really bad. It's true, there's a lot more around it, such as playing a stam class. But if with the current hard caps and everything that don't really exist, I mean, if you have enough regen, you could chain those wings all day, and you would just it'd be built into you, and that would be something you are. It's just like projectiles don't work on me. It wouldn't protect you necessarily out there, but it seems to just eliminate certain people, and that's how I used to feel when I played Magicasauric. I was like, it's one of those guys, I'll just move right on to the next one, and let the mob take him down. So, I don't know.
Well, I can almost still have Reflect on at all times with a build that has absolutely garbage for magic regen and magic pool. Like, I can almost still permanently reflect stuff.
Let me explain why I feel like reflective skills should not have a cap on it. And you just got to compare it. First of all, if back then and now it's a completely different playstyle. Back then, every single projectile you reflected granted you ultimate, which made reflective skills even more powerful because of the unlimited. It just kind of worked that way. On top of that, there wasn't as many ways to break through reflect. And right now, from a solo PvP perspective, as a Nightblade, if I run into a large group of players, I have a chance at getting away using cloak. Let's just say like 10 sorks throw a frag at me, I cloak, I dodge all of them, I'm gone. As a sorcerer, I can streak away, I'm gone. Templars, DKs, now here's the thing. At first I was initially asking for DKs to have mobility to escape the Zergs, but really that would make things a little like, you need some diversity. I think DKs should be able to stand their ground, and not just like it's not going to be an easy way to stand your ground, because the way I see it is reflective scales right now. The nerf only really applies when you have like 5 or 6 people shooting things at you. That's when you're going to feel, oh my, like this nerf is affecting you. My question is, why would you handicap? I know Richard said this once. You got 10 to 20 people fighting one guy who has reflect. Why would you handicap the one person who's being pelted, like being, ambushed with all these different projectiles, where the 10 or 20 people could easily just use any ability that is not reflectable and melt that one DK?
Yeah.
Why would you handicap the one person on his own? Because reflective scales nerf does not change anything when it comes to 1-on-1, 1-on-2, 1-on-3. It doesn't change anything. But now the level 10 who has no idea what he's doing. He has a bow. He's sitting in the background just light attacking you with your reflect up. He's he's causing more harm just by not knowing what he's doing to you. Honestly, you shouldn't cripple the one person. You shouldn't cripple the minority and make the majority have an easier time killing someone. Yeah, you can keep reflect up at all times, but now there's so many different things that can go through reflect, and the DK class is just not the same anymore. This is something that I feel like could help bring back the magic of DK into the scene, and help DKs stand their ground a little better, because DKs don't have mobility, but they should have the ability to stand their ground one way or another, or have the chance. Because I'm not saying you're gonna stand your ground with reflect, because people can still just start heavy attacking you with resto, destro. A bunch of stamina builds can ambush into you and you'll be done. But at least have that option to where a DK can kind of control the scene if they get heavily outnumbered, just for a little bit. A Nightblade can cloak, Sorcerer can streak or shield stack, dodge. DK's gonna have something as well, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe reconsidering like an uncapped projectile limit. Maybe it shouldn't be uncapped, but maybe it should just be more than 4.
Well, I mean, you could just give it
seems...
you could give it the streak treatment or the dodge roll treatment, and make it cost 33% more every time you recast it within 6 seconds.
Every 4 seconds.
It can't be 6 seconds. It has to be the debuff timer has to be shorter than the actual duration. It has to be like 3.5 seconds on a recast to make it so that you have to actually time your spells.
Or 4 seconds.
You don't time them.
4 seconds.
It can't be 4 seconds because, I mean, 4 seconds...
if you use it when the ability is up, which you should be able to do, then...
No, you should use it right when the ability goes away.
No, you should use it. It should be used
like
right
within a 2 second to 3 second.
I mean, here's the thing, guys.
Exactly. That's what I'm
Magic and DK is in such a crappy position that I think buffing reflective scales to be unlimited projectiles, even that won't save the class, but at least we'll start going the right direction. That's why I feel like, unnerfing the reflective scales is something that they need to do. I mean, DKs have been in a really bad spot ever since 1.6. So something needs to be done, something drastic, and I think that's something could be, reflective scales being unnerved so that DKs can stand their ground. We're gonna skip Inhale. We could talk about that in a future time when we visit class. Or Jules, do you just want to talk about it really quickly?
Before we leave scales, I just wanted to comment. Cypher, you mentioned why should you handicap the one guy against the 20 people? I see that perspective, but I think the more important question is why should the one guy be able to press one ability and kill all 20 people?
That's true.
Well, he won't kill them. The thing is, it's about survivability.
Well, so that's the thing. That's exactly the problem that DKs have, is survivability. I agree with you entirely there. But I don't think it's because of scales. I don't think it's because of the scales nerf. Something just doesn't feel tanky with my DK anymore. Like I literally just dropped heavy armor with this update, and I've been running heavy since beta. It's like something with the DK, something with their base survivability is not the way it used to be. And it's something that's happening in the code with the math. I don't know what it is, but it's the base tankiness that I think permanent reflect is ridiculous. I always hated scales. Like honestly, right now scales is, I said it before, it's in my favorite spot because it's not ridiculous. Before it was just downright ridiculous. Like Fangrush said, you run into one of those guys that are using scales and you're like, okay, well I'll just fight someone else. It's like that's stupid. I think that's ridiculous. So it's the base tankiness that we need. I feel like like I said, I literally just dropped heavy armor. I don't know what it is, but people are still like 2-hitting me when I'm in heavy armor. It's like I can't survive as my DK anymore. Battle Roar's great, but it's not enough right now. It's the base tankiness, the base survivability. I don't know, something with the passives. What they do, like get rid of that one passive that increases our spell resistance or something. Like, is it not there anymore? I don't understand.
No, so, I can elaborate. No, it's not even permablock because Lefty never permablock. I can elaborate on this perfectly. There's a lot of things that happen. One of the major things, not you Lefty, but other DKs like the light armor Magicka DKs, they're not tanky because they changed the way light armor resistances were.
The 25% instead of...
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
So that's one thing. That's just one thing. Now, on your side, Lefty, you've been running a heavy armor tanky DK build for the longest, White Strix Warlock. But in these new updates, you can't kill anything with White Strix Warlock, which is one thing I had to adjust to on my sorcerer, because I ran White Strix Warlock also, and I was not able to kill anything. I was tanky. I could survive. I could tank anything. I wouldn't die, but I wasn't able to kill anything, and that led to us changing our builds up. Because before, me and Lefty's build was, and I did the same thing. I was a Magicka Sorcerer. He was a Stamina DK. Our build was to out-sustain the opponent and then beat you to death once you ran out of resources. They took that away. There's no more resource battle in this game. So you either have to have high burst DPS, or you have to be a face tank. You have to choose one or the other, because nobody's running out of resources, and that's what changed in these updates. Is the fact that no one runs out of resources, and it causes people to change up their builds.
So that's a good topic that you brought up, the resource
Sorry
issue.
about that segue.
No, it's all good, because
it's relevant though.
I feel like when I'm making a PvP build right now, I either have sustained DPS with a solid execute, like my Magicka Nightblade Destro Resto build. I have an execute. I'll be running an execute with that, and have some burst options, or I'll have so much damage that my Wrecking Blow will just take people out, or my frags, whatever. Like the point is, right now, if you're not running high damage or have a solid execute, it's very difficult to take people out. You can't just out-sustain them, which is something the DK did really well. DKs could out-sustain people if they played properly. Their resource management was well. They could out-sustain people, but now it doesn't really matter, because a lot of people can have really high damage and be very glassy, but still have like really good sustain. And that
champion points.
Champion points, not just champion points, but we also had a major shift from soft caps to no caps at all.
No, it's 100% champion points though. The resource battle. Like if you fight Cypher, you take out your points from your magic recovery, stamina recovery, stam reduction, magic reduction, you will run out of resources. I've done it already. I've like was fighting and I'm like, damn, I'm running out of resources. I go look at my champion tree and I forget to put points in those trees, or I'm running a stamina champion tree setup when I'm on my Magicka build, and you feel it. Like you literally cannot fight without the champion tree anymore. And in order to fight without the champion tree, we would have to go back to our older builds. But the champion tree is what ruined the resource battle for everybody.
I completely agree. I think that the strength of the DK class was that it could out-sustain, like Cypher was saying. You could take the damage and you could just out-sustain them because you had Battle Roar and other things of that nature. And with that battle out of the way, it makes DKs not being able to do damage or tank, and everybody being able to have unlimited resources. It just makes them much weaker.
All right, let's move on. We've been talking about the DK for an hour. I know DK has a lot to talk about, so I'm not sure how long I'm not sure if we'll cover every single class, but we'll see how the time goes. Molten weapons, the DK's quote unquote execute.
Hate us because they ain't us.
They hate us because we ain't us?
One sec. I was just waiting for the resub to pass. It was actually really loud. Okay. Molten weapons. Jules, go ahead.
Every other class has a one button execute. Nightblade's got one that can be stamina or magicka. Radiant Destruction's really strong. The Sork one is decent.
No, Sork one sucks.
All right,
we'll get into it. We'll get into Sork.
Whatever. But everybody's like, well, DKs have an execute. It's like, no, you got to keep up a 9-second buff, and then like try to weave in like heavy attacks. Like, come on, give me a break. That's not the same as like just spamming like Killer's Blade or Radiant Destruction. That's clearly not the same. It's just, and I wouldn't even care if we didn't have an execute. Like I said, like all of these damage nerfs and stuff, they're only applicable because of the lack of sustain. So if I could out tank somebody and have the resources to be able to just kill them just by like whittling them down, then that would be okay. But I mean, you don't have the damage and you don't have the sustain on a DK, and that's what the issue is.
You know they nerfed molten weapons, right? Medium weaves used to proc the 150% buff and they made it to where you have to fully
Full.
charge a heavy attack to get the buff. I
There's no way anybody's ever going to convince me that that's the same as pressing Killer's Blade once. That's
I just
not
don't
the same.
understand how I don't understand where who was complaining about molten weapons to the point where they got nerfed.
Molten Weapons was incredibly OP in PvE.
In PvE, okay.
Keep that up, and all of your medium weaves in between everything. That was one of the huge strengths of the DK
With Crushing
PvE.
Shock, right?
With Whip, but
Oh, they were
I
doing
guess-
it with Whip.
yeah, and it's so seamless to be able to weave mediums with Whip, and every single one of those mediums was like 40% more, or something like that, 44 or something like that. All of those were.
So now we have a situation where like PvE,
Nerfing PvP again.
yeah, PvE, like this is a PvE ability that got nerfed, and then as a result, it became even more useless in PvP. Lefty, what do you think about this?
I don't know. I struggle. It's hard to balance all this stuff. I mean, we got to take into account. This is why class balance is it's my toughest topic to talk about, especially in this game, because you've got PvE, you've got PvP, so you got to take all that into account. And we talked about it earlier. I already forget what ability that was, or we were talking about toggles. I mean, so we identified that before. So maybe this was one of those things where it didn't get identified. Maybe tone down the numbers, not just make it completely shitty. But right now it's completely like don't even use it in PvP. I tried it. I mean, it was nice, but I felt like my fights became entirely about managing that ability and keeping that ability on. So it's just not that great, honestly.
It's actually OP, but only on one particular build, which is the heavy attack one-shot DK build. It's actually really OP because those heavy attacks were hitting for 35k on players.
Are you talking
that
about
was in
when
1.6.
they cancel it with Wreck and Blow?
No.
Well, even in this patch, certain just very very particular builds like the Stam DK can run this for ganking purposes.
DK with a bow,
even a Magicka DK using a Deathstroke could possibly get some really heavy shots in, but it's just very particular and just applies to just one playstyle. Okay.
But we also have to. This is the other thing that makes it tough when we talk about this stuff is we also have to keep in mind that we want each class to have an identity.
Yeah.
So does it? I mean.
Well, we don't want an execute like that, but maybe a damage buff when you get your opponent below a certain amount of health, something like that. Like
a passive or something.
Yeah.
It's just you got to do it some way where it's not identical. So
all right.
I don't know. It's tough.
Last ability on DK before we move on to the next class. We've been taking a really long time with the DK, but I mean, it's about like an hour with the DK, and then I don't know what we can do with the other classes, how we're going to fit them in, but DK seems to be the most heavily discussed class right now, outside of Nightblade being too powerful in certain situations. Ash Cloud. Ash Cloud used to be another aspect of the DK that was really, really good to remain tanky, and now the DK has to actually go outside of their class skill line to receive dodge chance, and I think that's something that should be reverted.
They can't revert it though, because the only reason they took those abilities out, Blinding Flashes and Cinderstorm, was because of the major and minor buffs. There's only one dodge chance bonus in the game.
Well, there should be a debuff to your. I mean, so right now there is no such thing as a major. Or like a debuff that, what was it called? A debuff that makes your opponent miss more? There's no major blind in the game, and I think that's something that should come back to the game. You should have the ability to debuff your opponent's chance at hitting you. You have a situation where you blind someone for 20%, and you also have 20% dodge, and misses will happen all over the place, but maybe even just giving it to the DK class and Templar class will go a long way, because they were pretty much the only class that had something like that. I know Nightblade had Blur, but Blur was reworked to be better anyways. I think DKs and Templars, since they don't have mobility, they should be the classes that can debuff an opponent's chance at hitting them. 20%. There should be a major blind that DKs have and a major blind that Templars have. And I know we might not be able to talk about Templar today, but I think like an ability like Blazing Shield should apply, major blind to the people that are around you who get hit by it, or something like that. Or
Yeah, but would that stack with major evasion? Because if it stacks with major evasion, and you get a 40% dodge
well, no,
chance.
what I'm saying is DKs and Templars should have that option. To have
Could it
that.
just be major evasion?
That's what I'm saying. Are you trying to say
Okay,
that
so-
that should
okay.
stack with major evasion?
Okay, so-
for 40%?
Okay, so I mean, I think it should, but I mean, people might not agree with me, because DKs just don't have the survivability to stand there anymore. And here's the thing, that will make DKs overpowered in one-on-one situations if they have 20%.
all situations.
Not just also because it comes down to survivability. You're not killing anyone if they're missing all their attacks on you. Not all their attacks, but 40% of their attacks. But a Nightblade can just cloak and they'll be gone. Or a sorcerer can just shield stack. They don't even have to have dodge chance. Their shields will be giving you a lot more.
But those are all abilities that have to be activated. You have to activate cloak, and then you have to stay in cloak to survive.
You have to be
stack
standing
your
inside
shield.
the Ash Cloud to be
But
blind.
that's what I'm saying. If you're standing inside the Ash Cloud, the dodge chance is still passive. So say you run the Ash Cloud along with Elusive Mist, and you got a 40% dodge chance, and you pop Reflective Scales, you're reflecting attacks. You literally become OP back in the day DK again, or OP back in the day Templar when Blazing Shield was OP. Like, that would just give them way too much of an advantage in outnumber situations and 1v1s. Oh, call it a day. Because if you got 40% dodge chance and I'm trying to proc a frag and I miss you with that crystal fragment, I'm just going to jump out the window. Because I already have a hard time hitting DKs with crystal fragment, let alone giving them 40% dodge chance. Oh, God. That would be ridiculous.
So you think Ash Cloud? I mean, I would be okay with either one. Ash Cloud should have just 20% dodge chance instead of having to go, like, because as a Magicka DK, having to use shuffle to get your dodge chance is kind of
Can't do it.
You can't do it.
Don't
Right,
have the
that's
stam.
all right.
Don't
Now
have the stam to
I
do
can
it.
agree with that, and I would even say up Ash Cloud back to 30% dodge chance.
Okay,
Right?
well here's the thing. It should be
It's something you
30%,
gotta
but it should be
stand
30%, and that's it should just be a unique major evasion that doesn't stack with the other evasion, but it should be 30%. And the stam regen from Green Dragonblood should be a unique 30% stam regen that doesn't stack with other things. But that goes into the major and minor, system that they applied. It kind of just doesn't work with certain abilities, and they had to take it out of this. I think Ash Cloud should come back with 30% dodge chance.
I agree with you. I'm not against that.
Okay, so we got a poll going on in the chat because we're clearly not going to be able to cover every single class. I'm going to spam it again. Lefty's been spamming it, but I'm going to...
I think we should do Nightblade or Sorcerer and then save Templar for when
Well,
we
that's
can have
I think we should
guests
save
on for
Templar. We should bring
'Cause
two Templar guests next podcast and actually have them talk about it because I haven't played Templar yet.
I play Templar, but like I said, I don't like the class, and I don't do good enough like a Blab of Fat, or I don't play it enough like Blab or
Bring
you know,
Blab.
some of these other Templars like Jack Daniels. I don't play Templar enough to. None of us does to even talk about it.
Okay,
So I don't feel
Templar is
comfortable.
currently winning the vote, but we would be doing the class an injustice if we talked about it without actually having some Templar guests on the podcast to give us their point of view, because I know Fenglish doesn't play Templar. Lefty,
I play Templar,
you haven't
but
played Templar.
I'm fairly new to it, so.
Jules is new to it. So I think, honestly, we should save Templar for a future class discussion because of the fact that we don't have proper Templar representation. It would be bad for the class if we talked about it and gave our opinion on it without having some people who play Templar as their main class and know the ins and outs of it. So Nightblade is winning in second, so we're just going to go ahead and talk about the Nightblade class. And I think there's not as much to talk about because not every single Nightblade ability is broken like the DK classes. So
We should be talking about how to nerf Nightblade.
yeah, we'll probably be talking about how to
I can get
nerf
in
the
on
Nightblade
that.
class. And I main Nightblade, and Nightblade is my favorite class. But recently on my streams, I haven't been playing the Nightblade class just because it's just sometimes it feels too easy. I actually prefer to play my Stam DK, which actually has some sort of degree of difficulty to play with. Nightblade. assassination skill line, I don't think. Okay, no, actually, there is an ability we really need to talk about. Ambush, teleport strike, and this will tie into not just ambush but all gap closers. But teleport strike is the biggest offender for this. I don't know if you guys have this problem, but sometimes you'll be trying to move out of a situation, and you'll get this one Nightblade who has ambush slotted on all 6 of their ability slots. They have it slotted with ambush as their ultimate as well. And they are just ambushing into you over and over and over. And the thing is, it's not even for DPS purposes. They know what they're doing. You know what they're doing. They're abusing the system with gap closers.
It's to stop you from
you can't move.
Kiting them away from their Zerg.
You can't move. Yeah, they're just trying to slow you down to allow the Zerg to catch up to you. And of course, every single gap closer has that little half a second stun root attached to it. I know they have that in for a reason. I remember they said that it was so that if one player was trying to get from point A to point B, and the player at point B moved out of the way, the little half a second stun would allow the player to catch up to them before they start moving again. That causes a lot of issues because let's just say you have retreating maneuvers up, which is supposed to give you stun and snare immunity. Not stun. It's supposed to give you root and snare immunity. But if you have retreating maneuvers up, and you have 100% snare and root immunity, someone can keep you in place with ambush spam by just ambushing into you. And the reason why ambush is the biggest offender is I think it's the only gap closer, or one of the only gap closers, that doesn't have a minimum distance required to ambush. Does anyone know? Every other gap closer has a minimum distance, right?
Yeah, you're 100% right. You cannot crit rush into somebody that is standing next to you. Leap is also the same way, but that's the ultimate.
Ambush.
Ambush is fine though with that. I'm 100% fine.
Well,
with
I'm fine with ambush not having a minimum distance, but the reason it's an issue right now is because of the snare / root that is applied. You can spam ambush from point blank range and keep someone in place the entire time, even if they have immunity. I was gonna say we didn't talk about this when it came to leap, but leap is like the only targeted ultimate, or the only targeted ability in the game that you can dodge by walking out of the way. I know, we didn't really talk about it, but like say you're leaping from a really, really long distance onto someone. If they walk away before you land, they'll actually avoid your damage. Like they don't have to dodge roll or they don't have to dodge roll out of the way. They can just literally walk out of the way and you'll leap onto where they were initially and they won't take any damage. So, but that's a discussion in itself. Ambush has a problem. It's not an overpowered ability, but because of the fact that when you gap close someone, they get snared for half a second, rooted, whatever it is, a lot of players will start spamming ambush to keep you in place and not allow you to move. Lefty?
I don't know. I don't know if I'm really qualified much to comment on Nightblade, because it's the one class that I really have never played. The only thing I know about Nightblade is from fighting them, and the ambush spam is just annoying to me. It's not like, I don't think it's having never played one. I don't think it needs to be changed. So, but I think you can probably just ignore everything I just said because I don't know.
Okay, so comment on the. Okay, so here's the thing. In my opinion, ambush and Lotus Fan aren't overpowered. As far as gap closers go, they're a strong gap closer. They're probably one of the strongest gap closers. But comment on the root and stun that is applied when someone gap closes into you, regardless of your immunity.
Well, regardless of the gap closer too, because that happens with every gap closer.
Yeah.
That's a problem that's needed to be fixed since beta.
Well,
I think that's a widely known problem, and it's just a little worse with ambush because you get the little stun too, or the root. Sorry.
There's a couple things though. Ambush gives an immobilize. Lotus Fan gives the snare. So there's like two different things. Like whenever you run into a Magic Nightblade, if they're hitting you with Lotus Fan, you're rooted and snared consistently. So it's kind of OP, especially Lotus Fan. I hate Lotus Fan more than Ambush, but they both do the same thing. They both stop you from moving. But Lotus Fan stops you from moving and immobilize, and gives you a snare.
Fingers, do you have anything to say regarding whether, we're talking ambush right now, but It's more about the effects of gap closers.
I'm 100% qualified to speak on this one.
Go ahead.
This is one of the worst things in the game, because I rely on mobility, and this thing is just a joke. Ambush is the worst defender. And then conversely, if someone crit rushes you while you're sprinting, you'll see you get frozen for a second. You can just roll and dodge it. So you can actually dodge crit rush on one end, and then ambush you can't dodge. Ambush just locks you down. And you said before, Cypher, these guys know what they're doing. No, most of them don't. 95% of them don't. Because if you catch them 1v1, they're still spamming ambush in your face. They don't know what's going on. They're just pounding that key down and hoping for the best. And they don't even know how annoying it is. Like, if I go into like a 1v4, I see like a Templar healer, a DK, a Magicosauric, and a Nightblade. I drop my ult on the Nightblade and I give him everything I got. Because 9 out of 10 times, he's going to be spamming ambush on me throughout the fight. And I need to get rid of him. It's more important to get rid of that than it is to get rid of the healer. It's because of the mechanic is broken. It's so broken. And it's terrible with ambush because they're standing on top of you, right in your face, and they're just hammering it over and over and over, right in your face. And this is awful. It's one of the worst combat things in PvP for me. I rely on my mobility, so like you may not see it as much, Lefty. Like I go into a group 1v20, and I'm happy to do what I can, because I do have mobility. That's my strong suit as a Stam Sorc. And I can't get away sometimes because of ambush. And ambush specifically, because ambush, another problem with it, beyond just the gap close portion, is it just doesn't have the same line of sight checks every other gap closer has. You will go around corners, you'll go through boxes, you'll go through trees. It doesn't matter what it is. It just sticks with you, and they can keep spamming it. It's so idiot-friendly that it really needs to be looked at from the line of sight check portion, just ambush specifically, to operate like other gap closers do. But then the whole gap closer issue is just terrible. That's something that all gap closers need to be looked at and addressed, because it's like you said, this was a fix because gap closers were missing their targets. So they put in like a target box that you would travel to, and it stuns the guy so you actually get there. I mean, this is just, it's a bad solution.
Yep.
And I honestly have no faith it'll ever be fixed. I really don't, because stuff like this impacts players like us, and I just don't see the interest to get it fixed. But it really should be. It's one of the worst things, hands down, for me in PvP.
Some people, just to clarify, Fangrush, when he was saying that you can't dodge roll ambush, he means in a situation where you are trying to get from point A to point B and someone crit charges you from behind, you can see the crit charge coming, so you can dodge it. But ambush, it'll happen, and if you don't know that they're there, you have no chance to dodge the gap closer. But I mean, again, the reason why I think ambush is annoying isn't because of the actual ability itself, but because of the little root and snare that applies to you. If someone is behind you spamming ambush, you actually can't physically turn around and look at them. You would have to actually cast an ability that forces you to turn around and look at them, or you would have to dodge roll to turn around and look at them. That's an issue. And that happens with all gap closers, but it only happens with ambush in that situation because ambush doesn't have a minimum distance. And I don't think it should have a minimum distance. I just think that they need to rework the way gap closers work in general. They shouldn't really root you or snare you just so that a player that's gap closing you can get to you. Because I mean, if you pop retreating maneuvers and you have snare and root immunity, and then someone's spamming ambushing at you, you're basically snared. You're basically rooted. It's worse. You can't even turn around. You can't do anything.
It's more than just a stun or snare. Like, you have CC immunity, and it's mini stunning and silencing you.
Yeah, it
actually breaks your character, like what you're able to do. It is so messed up. And when you get 2 or 3, because I've run into groups of 20, and I have 2 or 3 of these Nightblades latch onto me, you're just done. It's like you're in a stasis. Like, you just can't do anything. There's nowhere to go. There's no option.
Not to mention, if that Nightblade knows what he's doing and you get hit with like multiple abilities and then they ambush and fear you, you're not able to CC break it for like 3 seconds.
Because you get the stun from ambush and then you get the fear.
CC stacking, and you just can't CC break it, and it's broken.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the ability we're going to talk about when it comes to assassination skill line, shadow skill line. Honestly, like, I think Dark Cloak right now is in a good state in comparison to previous patches. Does anyone have anything to comment about Dark Cloak? If not, we're going to talk about Veiled Strike.
Yeah, if they make Dark Cloak work any better than it already does, I'm quitting the game because Dark Cloak is OP.
I agree. I completely agree. I think Dark Cloak does way too many different things. It drops you from combat. It drops that line of sight that people have on you. It purges all of the dots off of you, which as a DK makes me pretty salty. And it also gives you the stealth bonus when you are coming out of stealth, you do more damage. It's just outrageous. It does so many different things. It's like...
And you can get a stun with surprise attack.
Yeah,
you
and
dots.
Camo Hunter procs off of it. It's like,
Camo
dude,
Hunter.
come on.
Yep.
Yeah, way too many different things. I think they need to take at least one of those things off. I would be happy even if it was just take the purging off or something. So anything. To take the stealth bonuses from it or something, because the fact that it gives you the mobility and all those other things is just crazy to me.
Hey, Cypher, did you move Synthesis in here?
Yeah, I'm going to let him chime in at the end of the Nightblade conversation. He has
okay.
something he wants to say.
Yeah, I feel like he has a lot more to offer than I do, personally, that's all.
Cloak, honestly, like right now, Cloak is strong, but it should be strong, but it still has its counters. I think Cloak is in a good position. It shouldn't be buffed. It shouldn't be nerfed. Personally, on all my classes that I play right now, I mean, the 3 classes that I play, I never have an issue when I run into a Nightblade cloaking. Occasionally, I'll get a Nightblade who cloaks away from me, but if they're cloaking to stay in the fight, it's never an issue. Like, I'll have either Detect Pots, AoE, Mark Target, Caltrops. There's a lot of counters, that you can work around it. So I think
What about from a Magicka point of view? What kind of counters do Magicka builds have?
Well,
to Dark
Cloak? On a sorcerer, you won't have any issues. You can keep curse up on them. On a Magicka Nightblade, I mark them. On a Magicka DK, you have a bit of an issue. Like, you talents
And run around AoEing the air.
Yeah, I mean that's one option, but the thing is, I don't even play Magicka DK anymore, so I haven't even had to worry about that. Magicka Templar. Magicka Templar is a little bit different. I haven't played it, but I know going against a Templar, toppling charge is unblockable. I don't know if it's uncloakable, but like that's just an issue that I have against Templars in general when I'm using a class when I'm using the Nightblade class. If I'm going against a Templar and I dodge roll and they hit me with toppling charge, it's basically suicide at that point. You can't CC immediately because there's just a little bit of a stun, and then you're on the floor while they're hitting you with jabs. I don't know what's wrong with toppling charge. Is it intended to be undodgeable? It's the only gap closer that's not dodgeable. So I don't know, but that's for a future discussion. I personally don't really have a big problem with Cloak right now. When a Nightblade runs away from you, they're running away. But if they stay to fight, I really don't have a problem with Cloak. Veiled Strike, Surprise Attack. A lot of talk about Surprise Attack. Does anyone want to comment regarding this?
What is it?
I think surprise attack is fine. Surprise attack is fine. It's just Nightblades. They have a lot of different things that just stack on top of each other, and it makes it seem a little bit stronger than it is. My issue with surprise attack is when you get ambushed into a fair, you're going to take a surprise attack and a light attack before you can CC break. That's my only issue. But other than that, I think surprise attack is perfectly fine.
Just does so much damage, and then with the champion points also not having any kind of reduced physical damage. Surprise attack is usually what's on my death recap. It's usually like 5 Nightblades, ambushes, surprise attacks.
Yeah,
I'd like to see some of the other single target abilities from the other classes be anywhere comparable to the damage that surprise attack can do, but I don't know if I see that happening.
Well, alright, so as a sorcerer, Nightblades, they got surprise attack, which is one ability that can be spammed and animation canceled as instacast DPS, which is good. But as a Magicka sorcerer, I run a setup that can hit you with 4 surprise attacks, technically 5 if timed correctly, at the same time. So I think it's just a class uniqueness to Nightblades. They have surprise attack, that's their main DPS. They're considered a DPS class, which is why they have that ability. And as a sorcerer, on the other hand, you can do the same thing. And it's honestly, I kind of sometimes I think sorcerer is worse because sometimes I look at my skills. I got Endless Fury. If that executes, that's 9k. I have Magic Adept. Right now my tooltip is 13k. I have Crystal Fragment, that's a 13k unbuffed tooltip. I have Curse, that's a 9k tooltip, and then I have Dawnbreaker, which is another 10k tooltip. Like, that's over 60k in damage if it crits that I can hit you with at the same time. So I can't really complain too much about Surprise Attack doing 7k per surprise attack.
That's why I put Magic Sork as number 1 on my list, right there.
I don't see surprise attacks hitting for 7k. I see him hitting for like 11k.
Well,
Most of the time.
not
And
on
I'm
a
usually
player.
on-
Not
yeah,
on,
on players
my
it's
death recap.
possible. It's possible, but you got to give up a lot of sustain to achieve those numbers. I've gone against Nightblades who achieve those numbers, and they have like 600, 700, 800 sustain. They're ganking. That's basically they're just gankers, and gankers can hit hard with just about anything.
I mean, you can get your weapon damage to 6k and keep your stam regen at 2k without a problem. I mean, it's way more possible on a
When
stam
you
blade
put that
than
on,
it is.
on players that are really good at their classes and that can really handle their animations well, which isn't a large majority of the people, but there are people that do it on Nightblade. They're devastating. They
they're
can
lethal.
just crush me before I
So-
have time to react, and I knew it was coming. I knew exactly what was coming, but it just doesn't matter sometimes. It's pretty brutal.
Okay,
And I know some people, they have those hard hitting Nightblade builds that hit really hard like that. But like you said, you gotta sacrifice a lot of stam regen, max stamina, health. You gotta sacrifice a lot to pull those numbers off. And usually when I fight those kind of builds, they can't really keep up with me.
They can't sustain. I'm saying it right now. They can't sustain.
They can't sustain.
If you can take their burst, then you win the fight.
Yeah,
Exactly.
It's a gank build that can achieve that, and gank builds
basically-
even with 2k regen they can't sustain. Now, of course, in the hands of a great player, you can create sustain without actually having sustain in your stats by animation canceling, by controlling when you dodge, when you do this and that. But that's okay. So here's the thing. The way I see it is surprise attack is fine, but the problem is it's too easy as a stamina build to get you damage really, really high in comparison to Magicka builds. So when you compare surprise attack to concealed weapon, surprise attack is very strong, concealed weapon is very weak because it's hard. There's no physical resistance in the champion tree.
There's another thing I've been looking into, and I did this on the PTS lately because I felt the same way. I felt like Magicka was harder to scale up as far as damage is concerned when you compare it to stamina. And I went on the PTS and I did some testing, and I had my concealed weapon. I had the same regen, same spell damage, same max. Actually, I had more max Magicka. So my concealed weapon tooltip was actually harder than my surprise attack. Now here's the thing. My surprise attack was doing less damage on the actual player when I did the testing. However, the fact that as a stamina build, you actually can light and heavy attack with your surprise attack, that actually took the damage higher. So that's another thing that they got to take into account, because unless you run a Destro Staff as a Magicka build, you're not going to be able to keep up with surprise attack, because what really puts surprise attack at the top of the list of instacast DPS is the fact that it can be animation canceled. So if you toss in a light or a heavy medium attack, you get that added damage over top of it, and that's something I can't do on my Magicka Nightblade because it's running dual wield. My light attack's hit for like 1k, and then a light attack on a stamina build is hitting for like 5 to 6k, and that's just a light attack.
I'm just putting on the screen. Jules said that you could achieve 6k weapon damage basically with still having well over 2k regen.
Yeah,
and
I'm not
people
lying.
were like,
not
what
an
is she talking
oversaturation.
about? It's possible, guys. With the new sets, Malakina, proper gear, you can get stuff like this. Now, of course, this is with Malakina proc. I don't know if it's with Ravager. Is this with Ravager? I'm not sure, but
I think
I'm
that's
not entitled to disclose his build, but
okay.
I think it's Essence, Thief, Agility, all weapon damage, Molag Kina, dual wield, probably. I'm not sure what he's dual
This
wield,
is
but he
cloaked,
is
by
dual
the way.
wield.
This is
mind,
cloaked. This
this
is
is one of
cloaked.
my
Yeah.
this is one of my very good friends. He's a very good Nightblade, and he's an incredible theory crafter, so he came up with this build on his own. But
I
it is
think
very
that's actually
possible.
on the Stamina Sork, though, right?
No,
This is
a
a Stamina Nightblade. This is Stamina Nightblade. This is a Vampire Stamina Nightblade. Well, this is in cloak, by the way, so it has 10%. This is basically with all the buffs possible. And this is only while you're invisible.
Yeah, I can see him getting 5k because I hit 5k on PTS with my Stam Sword, and I wasn't even in stealth. But I can see that happening. But those numbers aren't like that's not what he's gonna hit you with because he has to proc Molekina to get that high.
Well, yeah, he has to proc Malakina. That's one aspect. You also have
But
to
if
be
you have
invisible.
2400 regen, you could
Is that what
potentially
the
sustain a
Monsor
Molekina.
passive? Like, did he just
double
cap a resource or something to get that regen too?
I
Like,
think
these
I think
numbers
he
are
might have
nuts.
capped the resources. I mean, this is fully buffed. If it could, I don't think
Yeah.
it can go higher than this. So I'm assuming that this is with the PvP passive that
He's
gives
near
you
a keep.
near
like-
keep the PvP passive.
Right, but these things, of course, it's not going to always be this high. The point was that it is able to be achieved to be this high.
Okay, well, I mean that topic though doesn't apply to surprise attack. Even it's just surprise attack is one of the strongest single targets.
I mean, if you got those stats, you hit somebody with a ransack, it's gonna do like 1k less than a surprise attack.
Yeah, but the thing is surprise attack overpowered or is it just very easy to stack damage and stamina?
Surprise attack is 100% fine. I think the real issue, boy, like for instance, me and Cypher almost got 1vx in the 2v2 tournament by a Nightblade with a lot of champion points. And the reason why we almost got 1vx is because we could not dodge his ambush surprise attack. He would ambush into us before we can dodge or do anything. We were already taking the damage from a surprise attack, and that's the bigger issue. And we just talked about ambush and fears and whatnot. I think it's a lot of CC issues, and the surprise attack
was my
being
issue,
as though it can be animation cancel for one, and it's instacast. That's an issue because I don't have anything on my Magic Sword that I cannot land it unless I hit you with a rune cage and then I throw a crystal fragment. But that's about it. Surprise attack is like ambush and you get a 20% weapon damage bonus or damage increase, and then you launch a surprise attack right afterwards. Surprise attack in itself is fine, but the ambush and the CCs from Nightblades are ridiculous, and you cannot dodge roll it. You can't get out of it.
There's a late break on fear too. Like I had the same issue. I knew what was coming in that tournament, King. I knew they were gonna come at me. I even put up that stupid ass mage light, and like I did everything I could to brace the impact from that guy. And again, like I said, has the burst that he can just come, jump in, unload, and just be out, and still have good sustain too. Because that guy had really good sustain as well. Like he wasn't sacrificing all his sustain for damage. Wasn't even close.
I'm gonna
Couldn't track
comment
him.
regarding that in particular. Now, regarding the damage, regarding the stacking and all that stuff, when it comes to surprise attack with ambush, I don't know if you guys know this, but if you cloak and then ambush into someone, you actually won't be removed from cloak. You will remain in cloak after you ambush someone. So people typically don't know this because when someone ambushes into someone out of cloak, they usually follow it up with something, right? So you cloak up, you ambush, you surprise attack, or you ambush, you soul harvest, right? But try this if you're on your Nightblade right now, or if you're gonna get on your Nightblade later. Cloak up, ambush into someone, and you'll realize that you've not been pulled out of cloak. You can actually cloak again, and the person will have taken an ambush hit, and they won't even see you. So what happens in that situation is this synergizes with surprise attack. Surprise attack stuns your opponent if you hit them out of cloak. So if the Nightblade is at a distance from you, they cloak up, they ambush it towards you, you're still going to be in cloak, and then when they hit you with a surprise attack, they stun you because they hit you out of cloak. So now they landed 2 hits while in cloak, while stealth. And I wish I had my game open right now to show you guys. I might actually get that running while you guys talk about it. But yeah, you can ambush into someone, not be pulled out of stealth, and then surprise attack them to stun them. So you get those 2 hits while in stealth. You get the full damage while in stealth.
Yeah, you can actually cloak, ambush, light attack, surprise attack, get the stun, and then light attack, surprise attack before the person can CC break. It's like 5 abilities hitting you before you can even stop it from hitting you.
Okay, so
To be fair, I think that the one thing that Stam Nightblades don't have is the reliable heals other than like Vigor and Rally. So they are squishier, so I don't really have a problem with the amount of damage that they can pull.
But I mean, Stam
because that's
DK,
kind
Stam
of-
DK also doesn't have reliable healing.
But
Right.
that's the thing, though. Vigor and Rally are more than reliable at this point. Like,
They
Vigor
make
and
them
Rally
in class.
are
I
basically...
know, and if you have enough champion points in the Blessed,
Yeah.
I mean,
like,
they heal for a good amount. I just think that Stam Nightblades are kind of
No,
squishy
they're
in
really, really
comparison to
good.
other-
All right, so listen, you got to look at it like this. And this is my best way to explain it. Because I play Sorcerer, and a lot of people give me, crap for playing a class that stacks damage shields. And they say, hey, you got a 15k damage shield stack. I'm like, okay, you're right to a certain extent, right? But, however, people with like 3k weapon damage, their Vigor is about 12k. Just for the Vigor. That's a 12k heal over 5 seconds. So that basically translates into a 12k damage shield. Because you're going to mitigate 12k damage from the healing. Then on top of that, you get healing ticks from Rally, and then you can activate a burst heal from Rally, which I've seen on if you have at least 3k weapon damage. It'll heal you for 9 to 15k healing. So those heals are more than viable. Like, they're actually over the top kind of broken at this point because of how much you get healed at this point. Because it scales with weapon damage and stamina. A build like the build we just seen on the screen with 6k weapon damage, that means his heal is going to be double what somebody with, regular stats.
I mean, Vigor and Rally, I mean, like you said, they're just... Vigor and Rally are viable healing options. It's not like a secondary healing option. They're just completely viable to the point where they compete with even Magicka heals. Like, Vigor and Rally, they're both better than Green Dragonblood in my opinion. Of course, the Templar heal is still going to be the strongest, but as far as heals go, Vigor and Rally, like, they will compete. They will be able to pop someone from, low health to full health relatively quickly. You have Healing Ward, you have the Resto skill line, and I'm challenging you guys on this. I think Vigor and Rally versus Healing Ward, I mean, by the time the Healing Ward, actually goes off, the 6 seconds, the Vigor and Rally will pretty much get you back up to full. Like, it's about the same, in my opinion. Magic versus Stamina comparison. It's about the same. I'm actually opening up the game right now just so I can show you guys this regarding the ambush. But as far as the class goes, we talked about concealed. We also talked about weapon damage versus Magicka stacking. There's fear. Fear is a very strong CC, probably the strongest CC in the game. The only issues that arise from fear is the delay when it comes to actually CC breaking. You guys want to talk about that? You guys want to talk about fear, or should we move into the siphoning skill line?
I think it's gotten better with this patch. I don't.
Yeah,
find
it's gotten
myself-
better. Like, I haven't found myself getting.
We're not getting fared into the ground anymore, so...
Yeah.
Yeah, not
That's
fall
a
to the floor,
positive
so that's
for
a
sure.
plus.
All
But
right.
I do still see like delays on fear breaks from time to time.
Yeah.
It's not just fair, that's any CC. Any CC.
Yeah. So, a lot of CCs will sometimes occasionally have somewhat of a delay.
I think Fear does it more though because ambush. A lot of people ambush into their fears, and when you stack CCs, it kind of bugs it out.
Siphoning skill line. The main one that sticks out over here is Agony. Richard, do you want to talk about Agony first?
Agony is... It all depends. It's just like for a Magic Nightblade, it's kind of good. It's just I don't think it should give you the CC immunity after hitting somebody. I think it should just be a straight up dot, and they should remove the disorient. Because Nightblades don't need a disorient. To be honest, they have fear, so they really don't need a disorient.
Okay. Does anyone want to comment on Agony? I know not everyone in here plays Nightblade. Fingrush, you don't play Nightblade. Lefty doesn't play. Jules, do you play Nightblade?
I have a Nightblade, but I don't
Okay.
play it that much.
All right. Honestly, besides that, there's not that much to talk about. Nightblades do definitely need to be toned down in certain aspects. But then also we have things outside of the actual class that make it even stronger. The ability to stack weapon damage and stam regen over other things.
The resistances of medium armor versus light armor.
Yeah.
The
All that
lack
stuff
of
goes into
champion
play.
point.
Lack of
reductions
champion
on
point
physical damage.
reduction on physical damage. Exactly.
I'd really like to hear what Zephysis has to say. I don't know what your plan for the agenda is, Cypher, but I'm just
Yeah,
gonna,
I should bring this in here so we can, at the end of the
Yeah.
Nightblade discussion, I want him to go through and just give his
before
full
we
feedback.
move on from
Yeah.
Nightblade, yeah.
Well, we're not going to talk about another class. We're going to finish with Genesis regarding the Nightblade class, and then we're going to talk about the arena, and then we'll conclude the with a Q&A. Genesis, I'm going to let you take the floor right now.
Alright, I'm Synthesis. I've been playing this game since pretty much launch. Been playing a Magic of Nightblade ever since. I like the class. I like the way it played. I like that it took skill. When the game first came out, there were a lot of ganking Nightblades, but I didn't like that playstyle, so I played a Magic of Nightblade. And Cloak was never as OP as it is now. You can perma-cloak now. And they're putting in plans to fix that, but that's an issue. Back in the old days, a lot of Nightblades weren't running Cloak because it broke to literally everything. Light attacks, heavy attacks, anything. If a DK sneezed on you, you were out of Cloak and you were dead. Alright? So as time went on, they started fixing Cloak. And now it got really good. And then in 1.4, 1.5, you had a really solid Nightblade. Where if I was standing in front of someone, cloaking, they could break me out of Cloak. Right? If someone was light attacking or someone using a skill, it would break Cloak. But now in this patch, 1.6, 1.7, I can be standing in front of you, kissing you on your cheek and cloaking, and that's a problem. Right? I admit that's a problem. If anybody has seen any of my videos, anybody knows how I duel, I can cloak at any time I want, and that's just an issue with Cloak. Alright, so I see why people are irritated by that. The problem though is not that Cloak is actually working now. The problem is that people can perma-cloak. Alright, and how do you fix that is you bring back soft caps. Alright, and that'll fix not just Nightblade's cloaking all the time, it'll fix Nightblade's running 6k weapon damage and two-shot on people. It'll fix people running in all kinds of crazy builds. You bring back these soft caps and you bring back the old stats, and the old stats, anybody that wasn't playing 1.5, you guys missed out on like literally the best PvP this game has ever had. Like, it was amazing. Alright, you had like 30k health, imagine, okay? With most stam builds are running 2.5k stam regen with 3k weapon damage unbuffed. Right? Back in the old days, imagine it being 1.3k stam regen and 1.3k weapon damage. That's what it was back then. And people were like, dang, how are stam builds supposed to hit hard now? And it's like, well, that's what stam builds used to be. It used to be a skilled player. Like, I don't know if anybody knows about Velcon, but that guy is literally probably the best stam Nightblade in this game. And people can try and, say that's not true, but he was running stam Nightblade when stam Nightblade wasn't even a thing. All right?
And he wrecked people with it.
He wrecked people. He took on Zergs.
Wrecked.
He was absolutely insane. And this was with soft caps. So the game needs to go back to soft caps. That won't just fix Nightblades though. That will fix sorcerers. A sorcerer should not be able to run 40k max magicka and get 14 or run 14k hardened wards in a patch where your hardened ward is supposed to be cut in half. So we're talking about a 28k hardened ward in PvE. You're telling me that's not broken? That's broken. There's so many things that ZOS needs to go back and look. Hey, what do we have in 1.5? Because that's where they need to go back to, is bring back soft caps. Leave the champion system. I think the champion system is a good idea. Maybe some balancing things here and there, but I think overall it's a good idea. So just bring back those soft caps and you'll see a lot of issues fixed with Nightblades, with Sorcerers, with Templars, and DKs. And I also think, this one more thing about ulti-gen, because with DKs, I don't think that we should go back to dynamic ulti the way it was. I just came up with this, earlier, was instead of having ulti-gen only be generated by light attacks, have it be generated by damage in general. So if a DK puts, say, Eruption, Cinderstorm 20 feet away from them, right, in front of someone, it will give them their ulti-gen. Because right now the issue is a lot of people, they're only getting ulti-gen from light attacks. And we need to bring back, hey, if I'm DPSing someone, it doesn't matter if I'm using a light attack, a skill, whatever, I should be getting that ulti-gen.
That's not the issue with dynamic alt though. The reason why people want dynamic alt back is because, hey, if I'm fighting 50 people and I hit 50 people, I should gain more ultimate than them hitting me as one single person. That's the reason why people ask for dynamic ulti to return to the game. Not because people can't regain ultimate or gain ultimate because of light attacks. I don't have any issue gaining ultimate. I have an issue gaining ultimate at the same speed as a Zerg. And that's the only reason why people complain about dynamic ulti. On soft caps, it sounds good in theory, But you got to understand something. The only reason why some of these classes are even doing good is because they remove soft caps.
Exactly.
Sorcerer was complete
No.
crap back in 1.5. Why? Because of soft caps. Sorcerers, for one, they don't have any instacast DPS. So in a game world where sustain and constant DPS matters, you eliminate certain classes, like the sorcerer class. It's eliminated because they're the only class that cannot put out sustained DPS. All of their DPS is burst. That's why sorcerers are doing so good now, because they actually have the damage to pull off a burst. But if you bring soft caps back, you eliminate the sorcerer class yet again.
Richard, how about this? Right? Okay, you said the issue with sorcerers. I've said this before. Was Harness Magicka was the only skill that was being absorbed. Main DPS skill was a sorcerer skill, which is Crystal Fragment. Nightblades, if I hit you and you use Harness Magicka, it went through. Right? That was just an issue. But now, forget all of that, whatever. Right? This patch, they bring back soft caps. Sorcerers still have access to inevitable detonation. Okay, so that's that one extra bit of burst. Because
it still boils down to this, though. If I'm fighting a class, say for instance, I'm fighting a Magicka DK. This Magicka DK is on me the entire fight. Talon's whip, flame, unstable flame, fiery breath, whip, and I'm sitting there, crystal frag, and then I'm 5 seconds, curse, 4 seconds, crystal frag, 3 seconds, inevitable death. You bash it. You can't keep up in a sustained fight without sustained abilities. The only reason why the sorcerer class is so good now is because they're able to do what they were meant to do in the first place, which was burst DPS. If you eliminate burst DPS, then you eliminate the sorcerer class, and then you also give people an advantage. We were just talking about how good surprise attack is. So now if you have sustained fights where sustained DPS matters and you got abilities like surprise attack, then you just hand the game over to Nightblades. Like, I'm completely against soft caps in every way, shape, or form. And I understand why you want soft caps to come back, but we got to understand, like, every time they do something, they make a change, they don't just remove one thing. They remove soft caps. They've changed the way armor scales. They removed abilities. They added major minor buffs. They added the champion system. So there's too many different things that go back to the old ESO.
All right, guys, I'm gonna step in really quickly because now we're talking about soft caps, and I think we should save that for another discussion because we're running out of time. Thank you, Synthesis, for giving your opinion regarding the Nightblade. Definitely well spoken, and I agree with most of what you said. As far as soft caps go, I really have no opinion regarding soft caps. I know the game was better when we had soft caps, but will soft caps work in this meta or not? Like, I'm just a little confused regarding that. Like, I'm not 100% sure. I just want to show something on screen really quickly. I'm on my Nightblade right now. And regarding the ambush cloak thing that I was talking about earlier, in PvE, it's actually 50-50. Every other ambush from my cloak will keep me in stealth after the ambush. In PvP, I find it a little more consistent to where after my ambush, I stay in cloak. So I'm going to show you guys. I'm going to get into cloak, ambush. It's going to pull me out of cloak. Get into cloak again, ambush. One sec. You see? Right there, I ambushed into him and I stayed in cloak. In PvE, it's not as consistent, but in PvP, it's a little more consistent. So I'm actually only cloaking one time after the ambush. I mean, right before the ambush, and I'll stay in stealth. Which what that allows me to do is when I go into ambush them and I stay into stealth, I can actually stun them with a surprise attack, which is why Nightblades can get 2 hits off in stealth a lot of the times in PvP because they stay in cloak even after the ambush is there. I'm going to show you on this mammoth really quickly.
The only reason it's pulling you out of stealth, Cypher, is because it's adding a different effect. It adds a stun onto PvE mobs and it adds an immobilize.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing. It adds a stun onto PvE mobs. So in PvP, it's actually 100%. If you do it properly, it's going to be 100% chance that you will stay in stealth after ambushing them. The only reason it's working on every other ambush for PvE purposes is because it stuns PvE mobs for 2 seconds. So whenever it does the stun, it pulls you out of cloak. But if that stun it can't be applied because they're immune already, you'll actually stay in cloak. So in a PvP environment, it's actually 100% of the time if you cloak up and then ambush into an enemy player, you will stay in cloak. You won't be pulled out. So you'll be in their face while still cloaked, and you can hit them with surprise attack. So that's That's a bit of an issue with the Stamina Nightblade. This also applies to Magic Nightblade, but Stamina Nightblade just generally hit harder, which is why it's an issue. They can get 2 hits off from stealth, and that's why they get some crazy DPS against.
Which is 2 Camo Hunter procs as well.
And Camo Hunter.
For 2 Camo Hunter procs.
It's actually, you can potentially get 3 if you toss a light attack.
Light attack, yeah.
Yeah.
Just.
Because you can light attack and surprise attack at the same time. You won't be like, if you animation cancel, you won't get pulled out of stealth. So that's 3 Camo Hunter procs potentially. If I was in PvP, I would show this. It would be a lot more easier to see. I could actually just keep ambushing to someone while invisible, and on their screen they'll just be getting hit by ambushes, and they won't ever see the Nightblade. If the Nightblade keeps recasting it, they won't ever see the Nightblade.
There's no cooldown on the stun that comes after ambush, or whatever it is. The
stun only.
That's
The
an
stun
immobilize.
No, there's no cooldown on the immobilize. Against players, there's no cooldown.
It doesn't give,
the stun
immobilize
applies
doesn't give
only
CC
to
immunity.
PvE players. The stun only applies to PvE mobs. So in a PvP environment, there's no stun, so it doesn't actually pull you out. So you can actually just stay in cloak and just keep ambushing.
And that's another reason why it takes long to CC break sometimes when you get hit with the surprise attack, is because it's an ambush, and then you're immobilized from the ambush, and then you're stunned from the surprise attack.
Yep.
So it's a lot of CC stacking with Nightblade that gives you that delay on CC break.
And they do so much damage, then your target is so disoriented that it's like it's usually just GG.
All right, guys. We're running low on time. We've actually just passed the 2-hour mark just right now. So let's talk about the Maelstrom Arena. I know this is a PvP-focused podcast, but I'm going to be honest with you guys. I've actually spent more time in the arena than actually PvPing. I know that's true for Richard as well, and I think Fengrush. Jules, you still haven't ran the arena. Lefty, you still haven't ran the arena. But let's talk about from what we've seen.
Because we play DKs.
Because you guys play DKs.
Well, that's not my reason.
I mean, people have their reasons, but I know for a fact that there's 5 or 6 DKs that completed the arena so far on the NA server compared to the 40 Sorks, 30 Nightblades, and 20 Templars. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's definitely. But
It's
that's
pretty
not
indicative of what's going on, even in PvE.
even in PvE for solo play. Let's talk about the actual arena itself, though. Forget class balance, forget everything else. Let's talk about the arena, because this arena is probably my first, footing into actual PvE content that I enjoyed. I'm going to say it. I actually enjoy the arena, but I can't really put I can put my fingers on 2 things regarding, or 3 things, why I enjoy the arena. First of all, PvP right now during prime time is just not enjoyable. The ping is high. There's a lot of Zergs. I can't play effectively as a solo player because of the FPS drops, the ping. So when I go to the arena, I don't have to really worry about that. That's one thing. PvP being in a low, not so good area is making the arena for me a little more appealing. On top of that, I'm finally gearing up properly. Honestly, I'm actually getting some decent gear out of the arena. I got 2 daggers so far, and 2 Maelstrom daggers. I got a Maelstrom Resto. I almost have a full jewelry set of the Hunt set, and then Oppression set. Is it Oppression or is it Suppression? What was the set? The
Suppression.
Suppression set. So, I'm getting geared very quickly. I've ran the arena 3 or 4 times only, and I've received so much gear and XP from it. And it makes me realize just how much reward you get for playing PvE content compared to PvP content. We go back to the idea that they didn't give us V16 Morag Tong or Shadow Walker or Hawkeye because they want us to actually get the gear from the new DLC content. I mean, I get that. That's a business decision, but I mean, there's such a huge difference when it comes to actually doing PvE content. You get rewarded so much. You get so much XP. You get a lot of gear. I'm having fun. Don't get me wrong. I'm actually having fun doing the arena. It's surprising because it's PvE, but it opens my eyes to the difference when it comes to rewarding players who do PvE and PvP.
Hey Cypher, real quick. I gotta restart my computer, dude.
Okay, that's fine.
A lot of trouble, so I'll be right back, guys.
All right, that might mess up their cameras, but that's fine.
Oh,
I'll rework it.
shoot.
Okay,
sorry.
I'll rework it. Go ahead, Fangrush. I know you spent a lot of time in the PTS as well with the arena.
Sure. Yeah, I spent a good amount of time on the PTS. Not too much, just getting a handle on the stages. I've completed it probably about 20 times now. I played as a STAM, and it's much different. It's probably one of the big topics to talk about. It's all over the forums, too. There's class imbalances, but then there's also STAM versus Magicka. I know we'll get to that, so I'm not sure if you're just looking for the overall thing.
We're just looking for just the actual arena itself, not the class difference, not the stand versus magic, just the actual arena, the gameplay you're getting out of the arena, the rewards and all that stuff.
Okay. There's not a single set in there I'm interested in, even remotely. That's kind of upsetting. The only set in Orsinium is Briarheart, and it doesn't even drop in there. It's one of the best sets, clearly, for STAM, and it doesn't even drop in there. So I'm pretty disappointed in that.
User disconnected from your
I think
channel.
that's a pretty notable thing to say, because the other STAM sets are so specific in their use. It's like, oh, maybe I'd want that set if I ran this kind of guy on this class doing this in this scenario. It's so specific. Most of the stuff in Imperial City would either be better or just crafted sets. So nothing in there is really an upgrade other than the Maelstrom weapons, which I'm trying to get, which you only get from the last stages. But overall, the arena, the challenge is fun. The buggy mechanics are not. I know everybody struggles with some issues to some degree. So yeah, I get punished more, I think, than some others on some of those issues. But yeah, I'm right there with you, Cypher. I'm in there because up until this patch, I PvP'd in the sewers because I can't handle Cyrodiil's lag. Like, when the performance drops and I start dying, in like 1 to 10, 1 to 15 plus odds, while my FPS tanks, like, it's so discouraging, man. Like, I can't, it's really hard to log in to do that. And a lot of people that aren't in those big groups are dipping. So this is a good alternative for now. It's not a permanent one. The arena's kind of cool. Yeah.
Do you know where Briarheart drops from?
Quests or something, or the world bosses. I don't even know.
The world boss dailies.
Okay, yeah. I
or the delve dailies.
Care. I mean, I'm probably not even going to run it. I'm not sure. We'll see.
World bosses are actually pretty fun. They're a lot more challenging than the ones in the other. I can't even think of the word.
So do you have to do the dailies to get Briarheart? Do you have to do the dailies to get the Briarheart gear?
I don't know if that's the only place they drop. I just know that I've gotten 2 pieces from the world boss dailies just within the last 2 days. So they drop pretty frequently too. A lot of them are dropping in like V15, which is weird. But
as a V16 player, you get V15. Why?
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, how do you? I think there's a way to get the V16. You have to do something specific.
Not that was told to me. I don't know. It's weird because sometimes it'll drop in V16 and sometimes it'll drop in V16.
I also don't know what the rewards are for Maelstrom either. They talked about, the rewards the same way as Dragon Star or anything else. I don't know if anybody knows what the rewards are going to be. If it's just like they send me a girdle of glory or something in the mail, then it's going to suck. It's probably what it's going to be, though.
Wait, they send rewards for that?
I think so, for the leaderboards. If they don't, I don't even know what the point of them is, other than...
When does the leaderboards reset?
Well, they're resetting it on Monday, right? Because of the stamina bug?
Yeah, they're wiping away everyone's progress for the bug, which I'm also not happy about. But what are you going to do?
Are they going to give us rewards for it?
No, because some people went and did.
No, I think they are, though. Are they not? Are they not going to just send out rewards?
I would assume not. I saw a post by Genie said, there's a bug, we're aware of it, so we're going to reset the leaderboards. So... my assumption would be everyone gets punished because some people went in there, rather than going in there and finding people using it and saying, hey, we're going to make an example of them. They're just going to wipe everybody's scores, which is unfortunate because some people in there can't complete it very easily. Some people don't get a lot of time to go in there and do it. Some people spend a lot of time just to complete it and get some chump score just to get on the leaderboard. Like, look at the DKs. 4 of them have under 1,000. Those guys probably were chugging glyphs every round and just spent like 10 hours in there trying to get through. and they did
Hold
it
on,
though.
first
I'm having flashbacks, man. I'm having
gonna say, 'cause
flashbacks.
My first score was like 375. So.
No, I know, but imagine you don't have much time. You're like, I did it though, and I don't want to go do it again until another time for a reward. But those guys are gonna be like, hey, tough. You know, there's 3 or 4 guys that maybe use the exploit. So you know, just take one for the team here. I'm trying to keep this PC, so
It took
that's
me
all I can say.
It took me 9 hours to complete it the first run. This is like my first attempt ever. And then after that, the second run, 2 hours, 44 minutes, then 2:30. And then today I ran it and I finished it in just 2 hours flat. So definitely the more you run it, the easier it gets. I saw someone posting on the forums saying like, ZeniMax, like, pro player Cypher is struggling with, you know, the arena. How do you expect us to finish it? I'm like, I don't do PvE, man. And it's just like, it's actually, I like the challenge. I don't want the arena to get nerfed. I want it to stay the same way. Of course, there are some mechanics that are a little buggy in the arena that cost you some deaths. I've seen the frustration in Richard. I've seen the frustration in Fang Rush. My own frustration from the arena from small things that cause you to die. But I think just overall, as far as challenge goes, I like the challenge the arena brings. As far as gear, it's very specific. Like I get where you're coming from, Fangush. None of the gear in the arena really interests you. There's actually a lot of gear that interests me, but it's just we play different styles, we play different builds. So obviously, like if something's catered specific, like for example, you're talking about the pet set, the hunt set that gives you stamina and health back if your pet attacks someone you recently attacked. Like that's specifically for Stamina Nightblade. I'm really excited about that set, but I can see why. Like if anyone else, if I was on any other class and I got that set piece, I'd be like, why? Like this doesn't apply to me in any way. Like how am I supposed to get a pet on a DK? And a stamina sorcerer running pets is free AP as far as I know. So the gear could definitely be more diverse. I want to see Briarheart thrown into the arena, to be honest with you. I don't know why it isn't. Is there any
I agree.
Take,
It's a general set. And
Yeah.
Take the glorified set and put that at the world bosses and give us Briarheart.
If anything, the hunt set needs to be taken out and put into lower bosses because it's more specific. So people who really want that set will go do specific things. But the arena should have most of the general sets in it.
If you look at Imperial City sets, they were very broad. You know, like if you're a heavy, it was geared to whatever it was. So if you're a medium, here's some general medium 5-piece bonus, whether it was some amp and damage, a heavy set that did some kind of tanking ability, like add a shield. But these are really, really specific sets, and I don't mind them being in the game. But that's all that's in there. And I'm just saying, like a majority of people that go through here aren't interested in the sets. They're interested in the master weapons. I find that weird. I don't really care. It doesn't make or break me, but it just seems very strange that they would do that. And Briarheart's one of those ones that it says, here's a stamina set. It doesn't have any kind of specific thing like a pet or an effect if you use an ice skill or something. It is a general stamina set, and there's just not that in there. Again, I'm there for the master weapons. I'm really there to have fun, do the challenge before it gets nerfed, because I know it will get nerfed. I'm positive on that. I mean, they nerfed Imperial City coming into this patch. If that's any sign of how things are going to be, that's what's going to happen. Like, as much as I said White Gold Tower was very fun when it came out, don't nerf it. A week later it was nerfed, and it didn't really need to be. It was easier as a group than this is as a solo player. So within the next month, I 100% guarantee you, and will bet any amount of money, you're going to see a ZeniMax guy post on the forums. We've reviewed the data, and the data tells us we need to nerf it, basically. What they really need to do is fix some of the mechanics, absolutely. That's not what's stopping a lot of people. A lot of people are just struggling with it, and it does take. It's a mechanics arena. It really is. Like it really tests you and it pushes you. But they're gonna nerf it. Period.
I think they probably will too. As far as Briarheart goes, I mean, I think it's actually more accessible being dropped from the world boss dailies than it is from the arena. So I wouldn't have a problem with it staying there and then maybe just also being drops in the arena or something like that.
Well, I got one major issue, and I'm glad Rich Lambert is in here. We do this dungeon. This dungeon takes, like, even a good player. I did it in an hour and a half, but that was on my 4th run. So a lot of people were taking, like, my first run was like 9 hours. Second run was like 4. Now I'm getting it. I'll probably be doing it in around an hour now, easy. But I'm doing it to get that last chest, and when I get the last chest and it's a hat of Winterborn in it, like that is too much time out of somebody's day.
Can you get hat Winterborn for the last chest? I think the last chest is guaranteed jewelry piece or Maelstrom weapon.
No, I don't know. I don't know if I got a hat of Winterborn. I'm just saying, like I got something I didn't want, basically. And like I got a Wrestle Staff sharpen. I don't even know why that is in a game. That Wrestle Staff is not going to be utilized. Like I think there needs to be some type of mechanic. Like I don't know, call them in-game crowns or something. Let me do the dungeon a certain amount of times. Let me farm up this currency, and then let me go buy the piece of gear that I want from the chest. Because waiting for an RNG drop it's absolutely ridiculous. Nobody wants to do this dungeon that many times. It was fun the first couple times, but now it's getting repetitive. And I'm running through it, but now I feel like I'm working every time I go inside of that dungeon. It's like, okay, I got to do my dungeon run for the day, like I'm a cop making his rounds. I don't want to play the game like that. I want to enjoy my time playing it, and I don't want to have to farm this dungeon out for 2 months just to get one item from it. I think
token
something
system
needs to
would
be
be nice.
Yeah, token system or something, or allow the weapons to be tradable or sellable, something to where I do not have to spend
all this time to get
it's
a
too much
bound
time.
item that you're not going to use.
Yeah, like it's too much time to get a Wrestle Staff with sharpened on it. Like I was so pissed off that I got that the other day. I almost quit ESO.
I got a Wrestle with sharpened on my first run. Regarding weapons, the weapons being tradable. Okay, so I'm always like advocating that PvP gear is tradable, so PvE players don't have to PvP to obtain the gear, but PvE gear is always bound. And for the first time, like when I started getting this gear doing the arena, I was like, you know what, man, I'm actually glad that that people can't just buy this because I'm like working to get this. But then I stopped myself for a second and then I realized like that's just like I'm being very, very hypocritical there. One thing like that I realized is I honestly would like to be able to sell the gear I get in the arena. The fact that the arena is hard makes it to where the gear isn't coming in as quickly. So you can actually, like, the people who master the arena and finish it efficiently and get a lot of gear sets that they don't really need can at least sell that gear set and get some gold in return. So I wouldn't be against them keeping the difficulty and maybe having the gear sets tradable. I don't know why PvE gear is never tradable, but PvP gear can always be. I mean, I know why, but I'm
Not
saying
all PvE
I completely
gear isn't
agree, so
tradable.
okay, not all PvE gear, but a
Like
majority.
healer
of them.
gear and stuff. Yeah, I mean,
Majority of
it
them.
should.
Gear,
expected it
though.
to be tradable, and the fact that it's not, it's really weird, and it's clogging my inventory. Like I have over 100 items from here already. I dumped them on the alts. Like it's crazy how many items I've got. Because I've done it like, again, I've done over 20 runs now, and I'm just trying to get like a sharpened two-hander right now. I almost really don't care what it is, just as long as I can get one. I've got, I think, 6 master weapons so far. Like 4 of them have defending.
I've been lucky with my drops. I got 2 Maelstrom daggers, 1 sharpened, 1 precise. So
You got another dagger?
I got another dagger today,
Oh
sharpened.
my god, I'm done.
But dude, I tested the dagger. And I don't know. I was testing it on PvE mobs, so I really couldn't see what was going on. Like I couldn't tell if I was getting a damage boost or not. I know there's an animation.
Dot damage, right?
Yeah, but
Like
things
have you
like
tried
biting
on a sword
jabs
with
counts
a
as dots.
magicka?
I haven't
Like,
tried
if
with
you
a
use it on
magicka
a
build. Well, the thing is, if you can't use it with a magicka build because you have to cast flurry, which is going to cost you like 3k stamina as a magicka build.
Okay, but doesn't it like amp it by like a ridiculous amount?
Yeah,
If
but
you
you have
did
to go
flurry
through
and then you
the
put debt on somebody, would that not be a huge debt?
Well,
I
no,
don't think
that's the thing. I don't think that's
single
counted as.
target dot.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, curse.
Yeah, curse.
Curse.
It will probably make your curse hit for 20k on the
Soul
tooltip.
Assault is.
Soul Assault
Soul
is a single
Assault,
target dot. Yeah. Gux TV actually said that he received 5 pieces of V16 Briarheart, no jewelry
wake
pieces, from Cyrodiil chests. From Cyrodiil chests.
Wow, really? So they just made it real easy to get, which is surprising. It's
Is
a
that
really
tradable?
strong
It's a good set. Yeah,
It's not
a good set.
tradable. Is it tradable?
It has to be if it's coming in a chest, right?
Is
Yeah.
Briarheart tradable?
Yeah, it should be.
Okay, that's really good news. Honestly, I did not know that.
So yeah, it'll be available out there, I guess. Which again, like, it's such a strong set. Like, I'd rather see stuff like that. Like, here's some really good sets. They're reserved to like floors 7 through 9. You know, all these ones can drop 1 through 3,
User
4
was
through
moved to your
6.
channel.
You know, something like that would have been nice. But instead, it's just like a lot. Like, I go through the Maelstrom and I don't even look at what I pick up. I'm just like, yep, okay. And then I go to the next floor because it's all irrelevant. And for a majority of people that go through there, it probably is. There's probably a very small percent of people that actually care about what they're picking up. Like, maybe I want that set, and they eye it up here and there. But that's about it. Most people don't care, though.
I'd really like to see the Scathing Mage set, which drops from ICP, which is like sort of the Magicka equivalent of Briarheart. It's like a 10% chance on crits to proc like spell damage.
Tradable.
I'd like to see that drop from Rothgar or from any
Cyrodiil
of this
chest.
new content, Cyrodiil chest, any of that, because it's pretty much the equivalent, except for I think it doesn't heal you. Something like that.
I want majority of the sets to be tradable. Like I feel like having an open economy on the sets will reward people who do the content either ways. Like you do the content, you get something you don't want, someone else wants that, you can at least sell it. But when you start piling your bank with just like defending resto staffs, defending daggers, and you just don't know what to do with them, I mean, you're kind of stuck, especially if you play one particular playstyle. Like Fangrash, you played the Stamp Sork, so a lot of the gear just does not apply to you. It's worthless. You're deconstructing most of them probably. But if you could sell them to people who wanted the gear, you would at least feel like you're getting something out of running the arena.
From a business point of view, though, it's a downloadable content. So in order to get that gear, you have to pay to get the downloadable content, which is probably how they see it.
That's
Do you know
true.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Rather than
that makes sense.
people who have paid for the content, trading for in-game gold and stuff to get it.
But then we have the PvP and PvE imbalance. Like Imperial City was downloadable content, and you don't even have to download it to get Shieldbreaker, Phoenix, or any of the Telvar Stone. You know, I mean, I feel like they always lean towards forcing players to do the PvE content to get specific gear. But when it comes to PvP content, let's make all the PvP gear tradable so that people can, you know.
With tokens, which is basically what AP is. You can just buy it exactly what you want, yeah. Like all the Undaunted sets and all the good drops are in PvE.
Yeah, and they really haven't updated those sets, and there's no signs of adding anything.
Where did Lefty
Horizon.
go? He'd like disappear as soon as the
there's
PvE
something-
came up.
Well,
Is
Lefty didn't run the arenas,
Wow.
but he said that he has some issues with his PC. He's working on. But like, okay, my overall, just let's wrap up before we do the Q&A because we are taking a lot of time. I like the arena. I like the challenge. I have been doing it with a Magicka Sork, which is arguably the easiest class to run it with because there's a lot of sorcerers on leaderboards, not as many DKs. Half the Templars and a third, I mean, the 3/4 of them are Nightblades. Like honestly, the arena, it's fun. I'm getting gear out of it that I actually use. I would feel frustrated if I was getting gear that I wasn't using, but I've been getting some really, really good drops, and I'm actually enjoying the PvE content. Sometimes over the PvE content, and the reason I'm not enjoying the PvP content is because there's just a lot of issues that haven't been addressed, and it's mainly the lag and the Zerg gameplay that forces me away. Like I'll be streaming, I'll be doing PvP. As soon as the FPS drops, the ping starts skyrocketing, and the Zergs are out and about, I'll pack my stuff and I'll go to the arena. So at least I have an option when that happens. Let me just fix the cameras really quickly.
Yeah, sorry.
Welcome
about that,
back,
guys.
Lefty. It's all good, man.
I'm having a lot of network issues.
Let's do the Q&A because we're about to approach 2 hours and a half. We don't really want to take that long.
Get out my box, Lefty.
Get your own box.
Let's do Q&A in the chat right now. If you're in the chat, ask questions. We'll pick up your questions and answer them. Everyone gets about 3 questions each. So you guys are good to go. You guys can start answering questions from the chat. Make sure you tag whoever you want to read your question, or you can tag all of us, and feel free.
Fucking Fang Rush reaching around and stuff. What are you guys doing?
Trying to find myself, man. I see my green screen and King's sitting on top of it.
Me and Lefty are one right now. You gotta separate us.
Wait, why? Why do we have to be... Wait, what? You breaking up with me?
Thank you. Get my own space.
Okay,
Just to clarify, Briarheart's apparently bound, even though it comes out of chest too.
By Heart is bound.
That's what someone linked me here and was telling me it's bound. I'll pick up. So.
All right, since we don't have a lot of questions, I'm gonna just go with this first one. Wait, what?
Go ahead. I'm trying to work it.
I'm in both boxes, boss.
Okay, so all right, so first question: are we gonna get this drank on? Yes, we are. Just after the Q&A, we're getting the drank on. Don't worry, man. Man, I definitely sound like. I got a question for you guys. Do you guys think I'm an alcoholic? Because I'm not. It's just. I like
we have to stage an intervention, Lefty. This whole podcast was about that. Any questions, guys? Ask them in the chat. Make sure you tag us so we can see your questions. We're going to wrap this up pretty shortly. If you want to contribute towards the podcast, type in !tip in the chat. And you can donate however much you want to. And I want to thank the people who have been helping us with the podcast, with the donations, and with the new graphics. As you can see, it looks a lot more professional. So thank you guys for all the support.
So I'll take my second one now, since I was gone. Mistadio is asking what my thoughts are on the new arena. I just don't care. I just don't care. Like, I don't care for PvE. I know, okay, it's fine if it's fun PvE, but to me, PvE is like you do it once and it's fun. It's like, oh, that was pretty cool, and then I'm done with it. So it's like, I'm not even going to do it once. Like, I have no desire to do it once. I don't want anything from it. I've already made my build. My build doesn't require anything from that dungeon. So like usually whenever I do a dungeon in this game, it's just so I can get gear so that I can go PvP. So if I don't have to do that dungeon for my build for PvP, I'm not gonna do it. The only reason I would do it is if, like, I don't know. So the only reason I would do the dungeon is just to experience it that first time and see how fun it really is. But after that, like, it's a one and done thing for me when it comes to PvE. So those are my thoughts.
Somebody asked if we reached out to anybody from ZOS to join a podcast. In this
we haven't
podcast,
yet. We haven't yet.
Yeah, we have not reached out to anybody in particular. However, we do want to, even if it's not on a podcast, even if it's behind the scenes, we do want to get together with the developers to try to point the game in the right direction. Give them some insider info, because we're the insiders. We play the game more than they do. We know a lot more than they do about the game. And we got to work together if we want to get the game fixed and going in the right direction.
I'll answer a question from Jago. I never can pronounce your name right. I'm sorry.
Jago.
Jago. As far as the cloak counter on your bar, Mage Light, Revealing Flare, I have considered putting it on my bar occasionally. The issue that I find is that on a Magicka DK, you just need like so many different skills to be able to do so many different things, to try to tank, to try to like have some shields but some heals. I mean, there's just a lot of skills that you absolutely have to run, and it's tough to justify putting something like that on my bar just for Nightblades. I mean, it is. I don't like Mage Light, but I think the other one potentially, but I just don't.
$50 from Blacklist. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate it.
I got a question right here. Do you think that Zol should debuff shields because the damage reduction won't allow you to burst through them? I don't think they should touch shields anymore. I think what they should do is go back. I think it was in 1.4 or 1.3. That update, shields, you were not allowed to reapply a shield until the duration ran out or the shield was completely off of your health bar. So for instance, if you were at 10% max health and you spammed Healing Ward, you would only gain another damage shield after the Healing Ward was completely off of you. So somebody would have to damage through that Healing Ward, then you would have to time it to keep the damage shields on. So I think that's where they should go with damage shields. That'll fix a lot of the issues, because the issue is if I get you low health, or if you get me low health, I can spam multiple damage shields and keep refreshing them without any penalty.
I just want to agree with King like 10,000%. I don't know when that happened, King, I remember hearing that on your stream. I couldn't believe it because I haven't played Magicosaurus since that change happened. And here I had thought like Magicosaurus in general just got better. It's not the case. They're all still just on easy street right now. If they ever come back and rework shields and kind of like put them in a more balanced state, there's a lot of Magicosaurus out there will get buried. It's hands down the easiest class to just walk in with a skill set up and just let it rip.
Yep.
Yeah, another thing is like that playstyle actually stuck with me, having to master the proper shield stack. Like people will watch me, and a lot of people will, even after I'm done fighting them, they say you don't fight like normal Sorks, because I don't. Like I honestly I wait until my health is really low before I start applying damage shields, and I go up against other sorcerers. I can sneeze on them, and they're putting on a full shield stack with healing ward. They got full health, full shields, and they're still full shield stacking while I'm doing damage. And if they bring that back, you can just watch these sorcerers get. They'll drown. They'll drown.
I think shields should probably be looked at as far as, like, the fact that you can just have basically double health of everybody is kind of an
They
issue.
absolutely need to be looked at. I mean, if Maelstrom Arena doesn't say anything else about it, like, the thing is, they can't change anything inside of Maelstrom Arena that's going to fix shields. It's because of how shields work that Sorks are able to go in there and have that buffer to danger. A lot of other people have danger, and Sorks aren't the only one. Other people have some options, but there's a lot of setups that do not have that option. They don't have anything. Like when I get hit by that poison on floor 7, I'm done. I'm done. I take my hands off the keyboard when poison hits me, unless I'm like 1 inch from the pool. And Cypher, like I saw you run it on your first try. You didn't even know what was going on, and you're just running around. You're like, yeah, so I'm just popping this ward. Like, so what do I do, guys? And you're like reading chat, popping hardened wards. And like for me, I'm done instantly. It's insane.
I remember that. I had the poison on me for about a minute, and I was just still fighting back, and I'm like, what's going on?
I shield stacked my way through so much of that dungeon. I was asking chat while I'm shield stacking, like, yo, what am I supposed to do here, guys? And I'm just spamming shields, just eating everything, tanking through it like it's nothing.
Yeah, I think the thing with Sorks is just that there's very, very few like negatives to them. They are able to tank damage, they're able to be mobile, and they're able to do damage, and it's just. I don't think that that's very balanced.
Overload
but on the
also
other
has
hand,
a great burst option. Despite how clunky it is, it will get you killed if you don't use it at the right time on the right mobs.
Yeah.
It's so clunky, but it does give you a great burst option too. That's the other thing. There's some mechanics you can skip with it.
You can't do the dungeon without overload. Like it's that OP. Like it takes your DPS from 10k to 30k. Like literally, you do 30k DPS in overload. And there's some people who will just sit there and light attack through a whole phase and then go into the next phase with 1,000 overload and just blow through everything. Cause I've seen mine hit, and I got a Redguard sorcerer that's kind of extremely gimp. I've seen mine hit for 35k, so I'm just imagining what some of these OP builds are doing.
in PvP, the only thing with shield stacking though, it's like if Sorks are in 5 light and without the reduction of physical damage, it's like, what are you really supposed to do as a Sork if you have Nightblade
and I
on
agree.
you?
Like,
so that's kind of like how it almost justifies.
I disagree though. Like that's the thing. Like sorcerers have everything except for sustained DPS and a hard CC. Literally, if they had sustained DPS and a hard CC, it would be game over for every other class when you compare it to a sorcerer. Because as of now, like I'm tanking. Like for instance, I was on my DK, my stamina DK. Mind you, it was lower level, but I got hit with a 10k surprise attack and an 11k still cyclone and died from a Nightblade. Right? He wasn't even in stealth. He just wrecked me. I got mad, logged onto my sorcerer, told the dude to stay there. I'll be right back. Logged in my sorcerer, went back to the same spot, and completely wrecked the dude without my health bar even moving. So it's like sorcerers.
The problem is we have Shieldbreaker, which is supposed to be the Sork shield fix, but that's for stamina builds only, and you have to use a 5p step bonus.
Yeah, and that's not a fix though. To like
fix.
Something that's used on multiple classes. Like it's a part of the game, and I want shields to be a part of the game. I want it to be something core to a lot of builds. I don't want one set to be like, well, if they're doing it too much, just go and equip this set. It takes me 25 minutes to get out of combat if I even want to switch that set on. I mean, it's so stupid. So that's not a way to bounce, though. That's really the point. Like, Shield Breaker was not the right thing. They talked about putting crit on, which was great. It was nice to have them say that on one ESO live, and then the very next ESO live, they're like, yeah, so that whole thing we talked about's not happening, but don't worry, Shield Breaker's coming. And it wasn't a solution to things. It's not a solution to PvE either, because mobs aren't going to crit. That's a whole nother thing to tackle. But it needs to be looked at. It needs to say, someone needs to say, this is a problem, we're aware of it, and we're going to do something. And right now it just doesn't seem to be, and that discourages a lot of people that are looking at this. I think that message is loud and clear on the forums right now, because I read them a lot, and people are on there saying, obviously they're seeing the class disparity there. So
Yeah, like I honestly, like, a lot of people because I've been playing the sorcerer class for a long time, and I remember I would go up against other sorcerers back in the day, and the fights didn't last long because they would run out of resources just trying to spam shields. That's what a lot of sorcerers did. But now with the fact that you could just keep refreshing your shields, like when I remember reading the patch notes for it. They were like, yeah, every time you cast a shield, it'll refresh the shield. I was like, what? I'm like, I'm gonna be OP now, because this was back when Harness Magicka was still broken. I'm like, you mean to tell me I can keep Harness Magicka on at all times without waiting for it to run off? Like, I'm never gonna die. And that's when I started making those YouTube videos, when I was pouring oil on Zergs with my Magicka Sorcerer. But until they bring that shield issue back, or the shield change, to where you have to wait for that shield to remove completely before you can stack another one, people are going to complain about shields.
I agree.
And I also
play.
Yeah, and I don't want them to just say, okay, we nerfed shields by another 15%, or we made shields critical, because when you make shields critical, then they're gonna add in a whole nother issue, because I can already see it happen now. The fact that shields don't have any mitigation on them, and if they're taking crit damage, people are just gonna blow through shields. I think they just need to bring that shield stack, whatever they change, bring it back. You can't refresh a shield unless your shield is completely off you. Bring skill into the game, and then you'll just watch and see these sorcerers get melted.
I agree, King. I think they should start there, man. Again, I thought a lot of sorts just got better, but they didn't, man. It's just, it's really that. It's that it's so easy to put up a buffer. Like, people put up a buffer inside the Maelstrom Arena that is more health than I have. Like, there's something wrong with that.
You know what's messed up? I'm gonna tell you my bars: Crush and Shock, Harness Magicka, Crystal Fragment, Hardened Ward, Inner Light.
Yeah.
I got 2 DPS abilities, and I run through that dungeon like it's nothing. Just Crush and Shock, kill all the mobs, pop and overload for the bosses. Good game, good night. That's all you gotta do. And I got my shield stack on my DPS bar, so I never have to swap. I can literally do the dungeon with 1 bar. I don't even need the bar swap.
Yeah, I mean, Sneaky does it without even having a resto bar. He just has shields. I mean, he doesn't even have a heal.
You don't need it. You need a heal. You just crit surge to heal.
Yeah, yeah, I mean.
What's he like running double Destro? I honestly double resto. Double Destro sounds like an option.
I really like this question. I think probably everyone could maybe comment on it. So the question is, do you think the game will ever go back to skill versus numbers? Historically, with most MMOs, I've played a lot of MMOs before this game, they always go down the exact same path, and it's usually driven by business. It's usually driven by making money. And the path is give the people an easy button, because the people whine and complain a lot, because the game's too hard. And so, honestly, that's the way that this game is going. That's the way that I've seen it go. There are a couple easy buttons that were removed lately, but there's still a lot of easy buttons in this game. Do you think that it'll ever get there? No, I don't. No, I don't, and I hate to say that, because I think this game of all games could really benefit from not having that easy button, because this game would be the game I want to play if this game didn't have an easy button. Easy buttons kill MMOs. They kill them. And I don't want to see ESO go through that, so I hope I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong.
I got a question from Briz. He says, if you were a developer, how would you fix the Zerg mentality in Cyrodiil? So I would attack it from 2 fronts. I would de-incentivize the need to Zerg, and then I would also make it to where smaller groups have options to kill the Zergs. Now, I don't want to go too deep into detail, because this topic, like, we can go for another 3 hours on the Zerg topic, but the first thing I want to say is a group of 24 people if 24 people kill one person, and assuming they have their AP buff on one person that's worth a full amount of AP, 24 people kill him or her, they'll receive 112 AP or 120 AP each. So yeah, the AP is split, but there's actually AP created from that one person because the group is 24 people. There's actually an increase in AP coming in from that one person. He's no longer worth the 1,000 AP. He's actually worth 120 multiplied by 24, however much that is.
2880.
2880. So there's actually AP being created because a large group killed one person who wasn't even worth 2 0 AP. So that's the first thing I would do. If I'm one player and I kill another player, they're worth 1,000, I get 1,000 AP. 24 people kill that one person, they're actually, like, all together combined are getting 2,880 AP from that one player. So that, I mean, yeah, you're splitting the AP up, but then you're also creating fake AP. I mean, you're creating AP out of thin air just because 24 people decided to ambush one guy or 24 people killed one person. I mean, I say this all the time. Like, they need to make it to where if you're in a larger group, you get less AP. People are telling me, oh, they already have that system in place. The more people you're in your group, the less AP you get. But there's a cutoff point, and then after the cutoff point, AP is just being rewarded for no reason, just so that everyone gets a share that's worthy of. And the reason I say this, like, that's just one aspect. Like, I know to a lot of people, alliance points means nothing. It doesn't mean anything to me, but some of these Zergs, like, to them, just adding a little bit more of an incentive not to run with a lot of people will help. You have to attack it from two fronts. You have to de-incentivize it, and then you have to make it to where smaller groups have a chance to kill larger groups, and then that goes into AoE caps, ulti regen, dynamic ultimate. But that's not the topic of discussion. But just to answer your question, I would attack it from two fronts.
Yeah, it's not even a de-incentive.
That word is fucking difficult. That word is not.
It's tough, but it's not even doing that. Like you said, they're creating about 3 times more AP for them. Like, they're actually creating an incentive to do it. It's strange to me. I won't go much into the issue, but it's just strange to me. We do talk about it more than once in the podcast. It's clearly the primary indicator of performance issues in Cyrodiil that turns people away. And nothing is done. I just, day after day, I wonder, like, we have ZeniMax people that come watch, and we tell them, and they gotta know, like, this is what causes your performance issues. If you have performance issues, like, if you have performance issues killing and making your game look bad, you want to take care of those ASAP. Like, they're the things that should be top on your list. Like, we don't want things dragging the performance. We don't want people to come hop into Cyrodiil the first time and be like, wow, this sucks, it's laggy, I'm never coming back here again. And yet, it's been here that long. Like, it's time to do something. I mean, I still know when. But, yeah.
A question from Leo, or LeoCore, or whatever, was asking, I think Cypher and Lucy and myself, if I think Magicka DKs would ever be returned to their former glory. Gotta have hope, for sure. I think that with some adjustments, some of the ones that we discussed earlier, it's definitely possible. It just depends on which direction they want to go in. Do they want to go in the direction of allowing Magicka DKs to get back to their, like, being able to sustain and tank people? Or do they want to go in the direction of kind of, like, evening everything out and allowing them to have executes and more damage, I'd preferably go in the direction of being able to tank things, because I think that's the true nature of the DK class, but I don't know. Gotta have hope, for sure. Just keep talking about it until somebody cares.
All right, I got 2 fast questions, sorry. Briz asks, would I like to see a small-scale arena implemented? If so, how? I would love to see a small-scale PvP or PvP arena implemented. And they can literally take what they have with either Vet DSA or Maelstrom Arena, remove the PvE mobs, and just randomly spawn us into one of those arenas, one of those stages. Whether it's the fire stage, like, still have the fire stuff, still have the fire pop out of the background if you run too close to the edge on, like, the last boss fight. still have the golden ghost. They can still just leave all that stuff in. Just remove the PvP mobs, the PvE mobs, and then allow us to queue in for PvP.
It's perfect.
And Gux TV asks, how do you like the Xbox One Elite controller for ESO on PC, especially after the last update? He asked this question like 50 times. I gotta answer it. The Elite controller is really good. I was already using the Xbox One controller. It's really the major difference is the build quality. So you'll just have a better feel in your hands when you're playing the game. So if you play with a controller, definitely get the Elite controller. Nothing compares to it. Like it's amazing.
I got 2 fast questions too.
How did I sell out?
I'm kidding. Xbox paid you to buff up the Elite controller.
I wish.
Alright, J Hill 613 asks, Fingers, do y'all think they listen to any of y'all?
Hey, J Hill's a fellow Texan, so.
Alright, well, I think that's a funny one. You know, I know they come here sometimes and they hear us, but do they listen? That's another word. I think they listen to us about as well as, a husband listens to his wife all the way up to the divorce. Not too well.
Damn.
Holy crap.
That's how it goes.
Jesus.
So, Ver, you asked Juan Fingers, do you think the arena will end up being more melee friendly? I certainly hope so. They got to do something with it. It's clearly built for range. If you go in there with melee, you're walking into just a shitstorm. It's pretty rough. A lot of arenas actually have specific melee counters. They are built purely against melee, okay? And that's pretty bad. The skill you guys are talking about, Blind's still in the game. You probably don't realize it, just crushing shock through stuff. But yeah, there's mobs in there that blind you, so I can't even hit anything for like 5 seconds. That happens a lot. That's fun. There's just a lot of anti-melee stuff.
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah.
They
Silly.
put that ability on me. I'm just sitting there like, bro, I'm range DPS.
How do you heal at that
Bro,
point?
I'm a sword, bro.
Fingers, how do
When
you...
I get blinded, I just pop rally or vigor and I just roll around for a second or two. I mean, it's silly, but there's just a lot of things. The bosses, they do PB AoEs, so they're shooting AoEs out from themselves. There's nothing in there to be like, oh, you're ranged, well, I'm going to punish you for that. That doesn't exist anywhere in there, really. It's all just damage stuff, but if you're melee, it's going to be harder to deal with, not to mention the fact that you're probably stamina, unless you're a DK Magica, which, good luck anyway.
I completely agree with that. When I played the arena the first time through, I was like, I mean, I know it's possible with melee because I've seen you do it. I've seen some Stam Templars do it. I know some Stam Snipers that did it, but I'm like, it is going to be so much more difficult if you have to be in their face to do the damage.
Well, I noticed one thing, like in that arena, I don't know if it's because I'm a Magicka build or if it's because I'm a gimped Redguard Magicka sorcerer. I don't know, but your DPS Fang Rush is off the charts compared to mine. It's like you just obliterate everything in there. It takes me like an hour to kill a trash mob.
It took a lot of iterations, that build, though. The thing I've arrived at makes sacrifices, and I just have to avoid things. But at the same time, if you can burst through things, you save time, having to heal or do other stuff. So,
if you try Werewolf, I can guarantee you will obliterate that dungeon, man.
Yeah, no, I'd seen Outcast do some Werewolf stuff. The only thing that scares me is like, yeah, you'll kill through it. Like coming out of it, you could just die in like 1 second, to something. And like that's how a lot of the dungeon goes. Like the thing is that build revolves around healing off crit surge. Like it'd be great for other builds, but it wouldn't be as great as mine is, because mine revolves around, most of my sustain just comes off crit rush healing. So it would be tougher for other stamina builds. But that's kind of the point of it, is really, really high crit damage.
All right, guys. We're closing in on 3 hours. I know it probably took a really long time this time, but I think we should wrap up the podcast. I just want to thank our donators for today's podcast. Blacklist with the $50 donation. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate it. We also got a donation from Jace Blaren for $10. He says shield stack for days, bitches. Thanks, Jace. Norcal Justin with $5 donation, and Elizabeth Austin with a $20 donation. Thank you guys so much. Thanks everyone who tuned in to the podcast. This is going to be posted on YouTube, youtube.com/cypherpk. And if you want to catch the casters on Twitch or YouTube, type in !casters in the chat, and you'll be linked to all the casters' Twitch page. You can find the information there. Are any of you guys streaming tonight?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'll be doing the arena probably immediately after this.
All right.
Yeah, I won't be.
All right, you guys can catch the casters on their stream. Follow them, show them some love. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And thank you, Jules, for showing up. Thank you, Synthesis, for sharing your input on the Nightblade as well as soft caps and other things. We're looking forward to getting more guests. Next time around, we'll probably finish up the classes, and I do want to bring at least one experienced Templar player so that we can have a very good Templar perspective, because not a lot of us play Templar. So
Bubble Fat.
Bubble Fat is definitely a good option if he's interested.
Yeah, Blob.
So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Catch the casters on their Twitch page, Lefty Lucy, Franglish, King Richard, !casters if you want to see that. And if you want to donate towards the podcast, !tip in the chat. This will be on youtube.com/cypherpk, and we'll see you guys in 2 weeks. We're trying to do this every other Saturday. So this is our 3rd episode. We've been consistent so far. Every other Saturday we want to come here and just talk about anything relating to the game. Thank you guys so much for tuning in.
Later, guys.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Everybody have a good night.